Good afternoon. Today is February 8th, 2024, and welcome to the Ways and Means Committee hearing. He is not testifying, but we would like to welcome our wonderful Governor Wes Moore to the committee room today. And we will go ahead and get started. Our first bill, House Bill 582. And if Troy Lamel, a frequent flyer, could come forward, Troy Lamel Stovall, and then you have Frank LaPere, Carolyn LaPere. If you want to come up, you can come up too. And Troy, did you want other folks on your panel to come up with you?
If Ms. Schultz and Ms. Weisko will come on up, that'd be great.
I also have a Mark Anthony Thomas.
You have Mark Thomas though? I didn't have him. Is Mark? That's right. You testifying too? Okay, I didn't. Okay, then he is.
Okay. Or you can wait and just swap out when somebody testifies.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah, why don't you let them?
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No problem.
Which way?
And whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. As you mentioned, my name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO. Today is a day that I've been able to come and testify many times, and we appreciate the support of this committee, and particularly of the leadership of the chair. You helped last year with our Equitech Growth Fund, and I think in the spirit of that, I'm very proud today to be able to stand here and make this testimony about this bill. I'm also very excited and proud and thankful to my fraternity brother and the guy also known as the governor of the state of Maryland, who has allowed me to give me the privilege to be able to introduce this bill on behalf of the governor. I must also thank the governor's office, Brad Fallon, Eric Lukey, who've been very instrumental in making this happen. So I'm here today to introduce and provide support of House Bill 582, the Pava-Lapere Legacy of Innovation Act of 2024. I had the chance, I've been at TEDCO coming up on 4 years. I had the chance to meet Pava right after I started. We had a project that we were working on called the Maryland Entrepreneur Hub. And TEDCO was one of the first, TEDCO along with the University System of Maryland and the Department of Commerce put together this effort called the Maryland Entrepreneur Hub that was being driven by EcoMap. And EcoMap, Sherrod Davis, who's also here, is the current CEO. We were talking to them about, they wanted another level of investment. And TEDCO at that time was one of their first customers and one of their first early investors as well. And I never forget the conversation I had with Pava because it was very clear. She was very determined and very clear that this was an investment that they needed. But we were telling her we really wanted her to go get other customers and other investors. And that conversation ended up leading to a point that TEDCO put in another $1.2 million into EcoMap. We're very proud of that investment. And after spending a little bit of time with her parents, I see both her spirit of innovation, a spirit of entrepreneurship, and this bill that we're going to talk about today. Even though she's not physically with us anymore, that spirit lives on. And the vision of her wanting to not just be an entrepreneur for herself, but create opportunities for entrepreneurs, for other student entrepreneurs in the Baltimore MSA is evident. So as I present this bill 582, there are two parts to it. One is the creation of the Pava Fund, which will create $500,000 that will allow TEDCO, and all these both will be managed by TEDCO, will allow TEDCO to award 9 awards to student entrepreneurs that are in the Baltimore MSA to help start those enterprises. We'll also be working with Upsurge, who's here represented today by their CEO, Corey Bailey, as well as our friends from Hopkins. You'll hear from Christy Weisko here in a few moments. They're also looking for opportunities to put on top of that so that these student entrepreneurs have other resources that allow them to start, grow, and scale their businesses there in the Baltimore MSA. This bill also allows the creation of the Baltimore Innovation Initiative. Many of you are aware of the Maryland Innovation Initiative that we have at TEDCO. It's a leading effort that's with our 5 research institutions here in Maryland that allows for the tech transfer. And it's a nationally recognized effort that's done tremendous work. Through the support of this committee and the legislators and the governor, these last 2 years, we've actually been doing pilots at Frostburg and Bowie State, because we recognize that innovation does not stop at those 5 research institutions. Innovation actually does not stop there. So we've had some great successes at Frostburg and at Bowie State. And so we're taking those lessons into what is now the Baltimore Innovation Initiative, where we will be funding through an effort, again, funded through the recommendation from the governor of $1.5 million that will look at innovation and entrepreneurship at our Baltimore MSA, both 4-year and 2-year institutions in the MSA, looking to help start enterprises from students and faculty at those enterprises. Both of these efforts will be managed at TEDCO. And let me just say, as I will turn over to the panel here in a second, we're excited to have these. These very much fit into the Equitech vision and the Equitech Growth Fund that you allowed us to create last year. This very much fits into what we talk about at TEDCO, which is the empowerment of these ideas at their earliest stages, both supporting them both with a check as well as supporting them with the other resources that's required for their success. So again, I couldn't be more proud to be here today to present this bill. Thank you again, Governor, for allowing TEDCO to be a part of this and to produce this. The panel I have here today, and again, this is where I'm even more honored. I'm here to be able to introduce Frank and Carolyn Lapierre, the parents of Pava. After they speak, I will ask Christy Weiskell from Hopkins to say some words, and then I'll ask Kelly Schultz, our dear friend from the Maryland Tech Council, and then Mark Thomas from the GBC. I will go ahead and say up front that I'm double dipping today with our friends across the hall. And so we have our budget hearing. So if I get the proverbial tap, you will hopefully excuse me to be able to go and testify across the hall. So with that, Frank.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman Elberry, Vice Chair Wilkins, and the members of the Ways and Means Committee. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide testimony today. A big thank you to Governor Moore for his ongoing support. He's made some commitments and he's following through, and we are proud to be here to help support those efforts. And we can think of no other way to show our strong support for HB 582, Pava Lapierre Legacy of Innovation Act, and by using her own words. Pava was a goal-driven. She believed greatly in Baltimore and in helping others create new and exciting and equitable business ventures through entrepreneurship.
So with your permission, we would like to read to you now what she wrote in one of her journals. What I love about Baltimore. I love Baltimore because I love its entrepreneurs. I love the fact that our entrepreneurs have learned how to thrive despite often difficult circumstances. I love that people have built tech companies here despite the lack of capital, and that the squeegee boys, they created economic opportunity for themselves when none was provided to them. I love that artists make music and paint murals in neighborhoods that most people choose to ignore. I love that the nonprofits and community groups have dedicated themselves to solving problems that so many people declare unsolvable. I love the informal street markets, and I have much love for the small businesses and storefronts that line our streets. I love Baltimore because despite all of our challenges, our entrepreneurs have risen to meet them and will continue to do so as long as our great city stands. During her senior year at Hopkins, Pava gave a TED Talk. And in it, she said a lot, but she said this, which is rather striking, we wanted to share. Sometimes the only qualification you have to build something is the fact that you are the one willing to build it. So those of you who knew her understand that she will be watching us all closely. Let's do this together. Are we willing to build for Pava?
In May of 2021, EcoMap Technologies, a company that Pava co-founded with Sherrod Davis, won the Biscotti Foundation Prize for student entrepreneurship. The grant was designed specifically for students from Hopkins involved with Fast Forward You, whose company was generating revenue and who had planned on staying in Baltimore. EcoMap qualified. And we were told by a close friend and confidant of Pava's that This timely grant enabled EcoMap to make payroll, something we entrepreneurs deal with on an ongoing basis. Entrepreneurship has lots of challenges. We are proud that our daughter had the courage and belief to keep a company going. She really knew firsthand and therefore could preach that through partnerships, there are multiple possibilities. Partnerships that we look forward to continuing to grow. We have gratitude for the institutions and grants that were available and are available. It's imperative that this sort of activity continues. We leave it up to you, the House of Delegates, the Maryland Senate, Governor Moore, TEDCO, and the extended group of Maryland entrepreneurs to do what needs to be done, as all entrepreneurs do. Finish the hard work that Pava so wanted to see come to fruition in her beloved adopted home state of Maryland. Thank you. Christine.
Frank, thank you so much. Frank and Carolyn, thank you for being here. As the family knows, at Johns Hopkins, we are actually renaming our student efforts after this incredible woman. And so I just really appreciate you being here to help tell her story. My name is Christy Weiskill, and I oversee technology commercialization and startup programs at Johns Hopkins University. Our mission is to leverage academic discoveries and talent to create high-impact companies and products that can save lives and improve society. A big part of this mission is creating companies and jobs in our very own community. I joined Johns Hopkins in 2014, having been an investor and tech entrepreneur. I focused my first few years building resources for Johns Hopkins faculty who wanted to see their research and innovation reach the marketplace. On a spring afternoon in 2017, several years into this effort, I met a young woman named Pava Marie Lapierre. Pava felt strongly that we were missing an opportunity to support budding student entrepreneurs, and I got a real sense of her brilliance. We at Johns Hopkins ultimately took all of Pava's recommendations and now have a vibrant program for student startup founders with over 800 last year alone participating. Pava left a big impression on me. She really believed in Baltimore, in Maryland, as you heard, and our ability to be a top tech hub if we are connected, intentional, and inclusive. And when Pava believed in something, others got on board. The Pava Lapierre Innovation Acceleration Grant Program will help Maryland retain talented entrepreneurs like Pava. All too often, Baltimore institutions train world-class talents who then migrate to other ecosystems. The proposed program will provide incentives for student entrepreneurs to remain in Baltimore. Governor Moore funded this program at $500,000 in the budget proposal, empowering TEDCO to award the program. I realize I'm out of time, so I just would urge the committee to adopt a favorable report on House Bill 582.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's great to be here. Thanks to you. Thanks to members of the committee for hearing this very important bill. Thanks to the governor for acknowledging Pava and the importance of Pava's work that she has done, and through this will continue to work. So thank you very much to her parents as well. The Maryland Tech Council is Maryland's largest association of technology companies with nearly 800 member companies. Our life sciences and technology members are at the forefront of innovations and discoveries that are saving lives, keeping us secure, and improving quality of life. One of the Tech Council's core goals is to continue to grow the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Maryland and working to ensure that we are one of the top states in the nation for innovation. Baltimore is Maryland's largest city and home to a strong innovation ecosystem. As you have already heard, my fellow panelists are leading the way to ensure that we are making the proper investments to continue to support up and coming innovators in Baltimore region. Pava epitomized this next generation of tech leadership in Maryland, and the lasting impacts that will be catalyzed by this bill are a meaningful way to honor her life and legacy. A strong Baltimore region means a strong state. Brilliant minds from across the country come to our state to take advantage of premier institutions like Johns Hopkins and Morgan State University. After learning and training here, far too often we see these brilliant young minds move to other states to work, innovate, and start businesses. The Tech Council is deeply committed to retaining talent
and creating economic opportunity right here in Maryland, which is why we have established programs like BioHub Maryland, an initiative to provide the training and skills necessary for Marylanders of all educational backgrounds to secure high-paying jobs in the biotech industry. We have been proud to partner with the Baltimore Tech Hub Consortium's efforts in linking BioHub Maryland to the consortium's workforce development goals. All of these programs put together are going to continue to make Maryland the top 3 innovative biotech state. We need to support House Bill 582 for all of these reasons. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Anthony Thomas. I lead the Greater Baltimore Committee. And on behalf of the consortium of 38 regional leaders working together in support of the Baltimore Tech Hub, I ask for your support for this bill. HAVA represented less than 3% of the founders who receive venture funding in America who are women, just 3%. She was a prominent champion for the Baltimore regional tech community, but most importantly, she was the type of leader that every aspirational tech hub must have. People who are truly ambassadors above and beyond their companies. This is what underrepresented founders represents. This is the vision for the Federal Tech Hub program, helping regions reach new heights powered by the spirit that PAVA represented. In the United States, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, even Washington, D.C. rank with Singapore, London, and Shanghai as the world's top global dominant ecosystems. Baltimore's proximity can hide the fact that we are truly a post-industrial market. We rank at the highest height of assets without the same outcomes. This is a case that we successfully made to beat out nearly 400 other markets who competed for the designation that we received. We are a place where the spirit of PAVA is alive and well in the work that so many groups that I represent today here as we ask for your support, work on a daily basis to make happen. We thank you for your partnership as we grow the Baltimore tech ecosystem, and we ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And is Brad Phillips here? Brad, can I ask, well, do you mind letting him just step up here and testify? And then if anyone has any questions, we can, oh. I was saying everybody else could stay, but that's fine. Whenever you're ready.
Madam Chair, I won't be long. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee, it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Brad Phillips. I'm the Executive Director for the Maryland Association of Community Colleges and stand in proud support for passage of this legislation. I don't want to take more of your time because anything that I say will probably not be as effective as the words that you've just heard. But innovation and entrepreneurial ideas happen everywhere, and including community colleges. And in the words of Frank and Carol LaPierre, equitable ventures happen by including community colleges. And we're just grateful that the 6 community colleges in the Baltimore metropolitan area are included and can participate in the grant program. And with that, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, committee. Are there any questions? There are no questions, but I would just like to thank everyone, particularly Pava's parents, for being here today. That means a lot that you are both here today. So thank you very much. And thank you to the governor for showing your support here as well today. Thank you. So that concludes our hearing on House Bill 582. And now I'd like to ask our comptroller to make her way up. And we'll start with House Bill 451. And I have a Ronald Wyke, Dean Renee Hutchins. There's a group of people, but whoever you want to bring up with you, Madam Comptroller.
Yes, I think we have, yep, Dean Wyke and Dean Hutchins, and I think Mayor Taylor and Robin, and great. Okay.
Well, first, let's welcome our wonderful comptroller to the committee.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and I apologize in advance. I have a slew of bills in front of you today, but we'll try to get through them all. And I really appreciate your attention and your consideration of this legislation. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you for giving me the time today to discuss House Bill 451. This is our bill to restore an appropriation for tax clinics for low-income Marylanders, to direct an additional appropriation to the Maryland Cash Campaign to provide free tax preparation services, including launching a grant program specifically designed to fund mobile or on-demand tax preparation services for rural areas, senior communities, and underserved communities around the state. So I wanted to note that a successful bill from last year brought by Delegate Rosenberg and Senator Zucker that made the tax clinics for low-income Marylanders fund a permanent allocation from the Abandoned Property Fund was actually unintentionally overwritten by a later chapter. This is what we call a drafting error, right? So there was a drafting error which effectively repealed the funding provision for our low-income tax clinics. So this bill restores that funding provision, and it also expands it from $250,000 to $500,000 using abandoned property funds identified by the comptroller's office. So this is that unclaimed property fund. In addition to reestablishing this important program, HB 451 increases the annual appropriation to the Maryland Cash Campaign. As you all know, the Cash Campaign is a vital partner to our agency, to the comptroller's office, and provides free tax prep services to individuals and families who might not otherwise be able to afford expert tax help. I can't say enough about how amazing the work that they do is, and we hear about it all over the state. So this increased appropriation will allow the Cash Campaign to expand its existing footprint throughout Maryland and direct $150,000 of these funds specifically to mobile or on-demand tax prep clinics to serve rural populations. This is really important as I travel around the state. I often talk with folks in our rural areas and with seniors who do not have access to low-income tax clinics. Right now, we're aware that Washington County and Kent County do not have any free tax prep services. 7 other counties, Talbot, Caroline, Queen Anne, Somerset, Cecil, Garrett, and St. Mary's, have only one site. And of those counties, only one, Garrett, operates for more than 9 hours a week. So there is too few places that provide these services. And the truth is that the Office of the Comptroller, we are inundated and cannot nearly meet the need. So the need for this bill is great. These are important partners who make sure that we can collect the revenue that is owed in the state. We know the demand is there, and we know this is a solvable problem. And this bill really begins to address the issue for Marylanders around the state. I look forward to working with you on this bill, and I ask for a favorable report on HB 451. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Special greeting to my former student, Delegate Young. My name is Ronald Weich. I'm the Dean of the University of Baltimore School of Law. Very pleased to be here with my Dean colleague, Dean Hutchins, and others, and the Comptroller in support of HB 451. The University of Baltimore School of Law has long had a low-income tax clinic. It's funded in part by a grant from the Internal Revenue Service, which enables us and had enabled us to focus especially on federal tax disputes and give our students a chance to gain experience representing low-income Marylanders with federal tax disputes. Several years ago, Delegate Rosenberg, Sandy Rosenberg, introduced a bill to provide state funding that would enable us to then expand our representation to state tax law disputes. Last year, the General Assembly, I think wisely, repealed a sunset provision so the funding would continue. And now Delegate Learman has proposed this bill, which corrects the drafting error, restores funding, and in fact expands funding. This is very valuable, not just for our students to gain experience in these tax law cases, but it's beneficial to the low-income Marylanders whom we represent, and it benefits the state. In fact, it benefits the Comptroller's office because it's difficult for the Comptroller to deal with unrepresented individuals, and this enables for a speedier and more equitable resolution of these cases. So we very much favor this bill. It will strengthen the work of our clinics and our partnership with the Comptroller's Office. I thank you very much.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the House Ways and Means Committee. As mentioned, I am Renee McDonald Hutchins. I am the proud Dean of Maryland Carey Law, and I am delighted, yes, and I am delighted to be with you this afternoon. You have my written testimony. And so I want to spend my very brief time with you this morning to talk to you about the 4 very important ways that this funding supports the people of Maryland. So first, you are supporting the direct representation and education of all of the people who we represent and educate who otherwise would not have access to the guidance and advice and advocacy of legal counsel. Second, you are reducing the amount of resources that the state needs to invest in enforcement actions. So by voluntarily working with our clients to bring them into compliance with the tax laws, we are reducing the amount of money the state needs to use for forced enforcement of tax laws. Third, the majority of our students, and I am assuming the majority of Ron's students, go out and become members of the Maryland Bar. And so you are investing in the creation of the next generation of advocates who not only are going to understand the gap in access to justice that is created by differential wealth in this country, but you are also investing in the upskilling and training of lawyers who are going to go out and know how to represent those matters and help clients with tax issues. Fourth and finally, I just want to highlight that you are also supporting collaboration with other state agencies. So the clinic at Maryland Carey Law worked with Dollar to work on a pamphlet to help educate visa holders so that they could come into compliance with tax laws and understand their tax obligations. And so for all these reasons and for all the reasons I articulated in my written testimony, I would urge the committee to report favorably on the bill. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Certainly. Good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and the Ways and Means Committee. I'm here to speak in favor of House Bill 451. I am the mayor of the great city of Crisfield. We've
all been there, right?
Fantastic. You know, we fit the bill for all the things that the comptroller spoke about, talking about underrepresented, talking about underserved, talking about low income, seniors. I represent a population of about 2,400 residents, of which more than 1,000 live in public housing. So this would be a huge benefit for us. Currently, Crisfield, which is in Somerset County, has no free tax services in our community, none. We have 2 professional tax services, H&R Block and Tulsa County. Both of them are paid services. And as luck would have it, on my way up here this morning, I was speaking to the lady at H&R Block, and she said to me, we need one of these here in our community. She said, many times I have worked with clients who were unable to pay. And she said, I have tried to work around that. But in all honesty, that service is not there. The nearest free preparer is in Princess Anne, about 30 minutes away. It's only open 1 day a week and only for 3 hours. The next nearest, there's a couple in Salisbury, 45 minutes a day with limited access. So many of our residents are without transportation. So this is not an option for them. So what do they do today? Today, most of them will go to H&R Block. They'll pay fees, try to do rapid refund. Some of them will try to file themselves, but most will go to a friend of a friend who doesn't know all the tax laws, who is not able to give them all of the benefits that they might have. And then there are others who just won't file. So the benefit of having an on-demand and mobile tax clinic, it will be convenient. It will be visible. It will provide that access to free services not currently available in our community. So in closing, I think that's my bell, correct? Okay, yes. So in closing, I really want to say we have seasonal seafood workers. We have self-employed watermen. We have residents receiving unemployment benefits. We have seniors who are still working. And so they will have access to a free professional tax service to answer their questions and to provide the support that they otherwise would not get. So in conclusion, I would ask that you would look favorably on House Bill 451. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shimmy, and you don't have to move. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, my name is Robin McKinney. Thank you so much for considering my testimony today. I am the co-founder and CEO of the Cash Campaign of Maryland, here in very strong support of House Bill 451. And thank you so much to the comptroller for putting it in. For those of you who don't know us, CASH stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope, and we promote economic advancement for low to moderate income families across the state. I've been doing free tax preparation since I started as a volunteer in the year 2000, and have driven to every corner of the state. I always say no one gets more hype about people getting their taxes done than the Cash Campaign. And we try in every county, and I've been doing this again for over 20 years now, to give everybody free access. Right now, we have so much more demand than we have supply. Last year, we were able to serve us and our partners across the state over 16,000 clients, which brought back $28 million to these low-income tax filers. These are folks that earn less than $64,000, but more than half earn less than 20. So we're talking about very low-income tax filers. Just in Baltimore City alone last year, we got almost 23,000 calls for appointments, and we could serve just shy of 7,800. That's just in Baltimore City alone. Right now, we are just over a week into tax season, and all of our appointments across the state are already booked. It costs about $40,000 to $60,000 to run a tax site. And we at Cash have been working really hard through the leadership of this committee, through the governor's office, through the comptroller's office, through our partners at the IRS and private foundations to bring as much money as possible into local communities. This year, we had over $570,000 worth of requests from local partners, and we were able to fund $470,000, which is the most we've ever done. We do this in partnership. Yes, this money says Cash Campaign on it, but this is a network of partners this year that's in 14 counties, and our high watermark has been in 19 counties. So for all of those reasons, we just really appreciate your support, making sure that every dollar gets back into the pockets of those who need it.
Thank you. I also had a John Hart. You want to just, swap out? Thank you.
Chairwoman Atterbury and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify today. My name is John Hart, and I am the director of the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic at Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, one of the oldest and largest providers of free legal services in the state. Through our LITC program, we encounter many clients who owe back taxes to the Maryland comptroller, resulting in consequences such as liens, levies, and suspended driver's licenses. All of these consequences have serious effects on our clients' lives and futures, with liens damaging credit scores, levies and garnishments reducing already low wages, and holds on driver's licenses hindering their ability to work. When these taxpayers receive legal assistance through our clinic, they are much more likely to receive favorable outcomes and are able to resolve their tax issues, putting them on a path forward to long-term financial stability and employment. LITCs like ours are federally funded to provide assistance to low-income taxpayers who have federal tax issues. These clinics are allowed to assist low-income taxpayers with Maryland tax issues, but only if the client already has a federal tax issue. For Marylanders with only a Maryland state tax issue, these LITCs like ours can't use our federal funding. In the past, MVLS has made the financially difficult decision to provide services to taxpayers with only Maryland tax issues, but this was unsustainable. Only the funding that was added 3 years ago allowed us to continue to do this. House Bill 451 would continue and increase that vital funding all three LITC programs in the state need to continue legal representation for Marylanders with Maryland-specific state tax issues. MVLS respectfully requests that this committee return a favorable report on House Bill 451. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 451. Madam Comptroller, House Bill 452.
Great, thanks.
Great. I have Victoria Kelly, Luz Lanza.
Yep, she's right here.
John Hart and Javante Hawkins.
Great. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, for the record, I'm Comptroller Brooke Learman here to testify in support of House Bill 452, which is titled the Stop Scam Preparers Act. And that is exactly what we are trying to do with this bill. I want to highlight and thank Attorney General Brown for his support. There is written testimony in your packet from him as well. So this bill builds on the foundation laid by the 2017 Taxpayer Protection Act. This bill aims to protect consumers in 3 ways. First, it improves the communication practices between the Office of the Comptroller and the Maryland Board of Individual Tax Preparers. And that board is actually not in our agency. It's within the Department of Labor. And when the Comptroller takes an action against a tax preparer, we will then be required to notify the board and vice versa. So today, sometimes the board will take action and we aren't notified, and we're still then doing work with a bad actor, which is obviously a problem. Each of us also has a role to play in protecting consumers, and the more effectively we communicate, the more that we can support our consumers. I will also note that we have the support of the Department of Labor and the Maryland Board of Individual Tax Preparers, which you will also see as submitted testimony. Second, this bill aims to protect the tax preparer community. This bill directs the Board of Individual Tax Preparers to develop a code of ethics that tax preparers will be required to comply with in order to get and maintain their tax preparers registration with the state. We'll be offering a slight amendment to ensure the process of creating that code of ethics incorporates the ability for stakeholders to provide some feedback as well. I'm proud to say that this is an idea that came directly from the tax preparer community, and you will hear from them on this panel. And finally, this bill provides the Comptroller of Maryland's Field Enforcement Bureau with new enforcement efforts to charge violators, to fine them for each violation. These enhanced penalties are aimed directly at disrupting the profitability of these schemes, and any resulting fines will be directed to the Low-Income Tax Clinics Fund. Some of the clinics that utilize this fund directly help victims of tax scams to recover from that experience. And while it's important to lay out the provisions as this bill, as there are multiple parts, really the focus should be on why we're bringing this bill in the first place. On the panel today are several folks who are on the front lines of both catching scams and also to help individuals pick up the pieces after they've fallen victim. We continue to see too many Marylanders falling victim to scam tax preparers, the consequences of which can create lingering financial issues for too many Marylanders, many of whom are already experiencing hardship. Scams take many different forms. I have been amazed at the ingenuity and creativity of bad actors out there. But one common example is for unregistered preparers to produce legitimate looking returns aimed at generating larger than expected refunds. When the refund then arrives, that scam preparer takes the return and the refund and then leaves the client on the hook for any tax liability and penalty that may arise from the scam. We hear so many stories. I have heard far too many stories about these scam preparers going unchecked. And I could, be here all day regaling you with those, but instead I'm glad to have some people who are on the front lines take a few moments to tell you about their stories. I urge a favorable report on HB 452. Thank you. Luz, you want to?
Yes, good afternoon to all present. My name is Luz Lanza, and I am here today on behalf of the Comptroller of Maryland Taxpayer Service Division. Thank you for giving me the time today to discuss House Bill 452, which will improve coordination between our office and the Department of Labor, allowing both agencies to intervene sooner than when either entity suspects fraud. This is a very present problem in our community, unfortunately. In my position as a bilingual representative at the Comptroller's of Hagerstown's Maryland branch office, I see firsthand that the Hispanic community is being targeted by unscrupulous and unregistered tax preparers. There are bad actors out there who offer to get taxpayers access to driver's licenses and motor vehicle registrations by filing fraudulent tax returns containing false information and charging outrageous sums to file those returns. Charge for assistance with very simple forms and even schemes that charge to set up appointments at our branch offices, which is always free of charge. This is a significant problem in our state. And as a bilingual representative for the Comptroller, I was able to encourage some of these filers to confide in me that they had been defrauded and faced both financial and tax consequences as a result. Among most egregious examples of this fraud are unregistered tax preparers not disclosing consequences of filing fraudulent information and charging unreasonable fees, such as $150 just to make an appointment, $800 to complete a simple tax form, $1,500 for tax preparation for 1 year of taxes. These agencies offer these residents are offered these services for free at our offices. This is something we provide, but unfortunately, because of the lack of information and these people have no idea that they are being taken advantage for and of the consequences that they're going to face in the once all of this fraudulent information gets processed and gets back to them. I thank you today for your leadership and the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of all of those who are not able to stand here in front of you. And I urge a favorable report on House Bill 452.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Giovante Hawkins. I represent the Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals. Our organization has over 2,000 members serving hundreds of thousands of Maryland taxpayers. I'm here today in support of House Bill 452 to strengthen the oversight and enforcement of paid tax preparers in our state. Our members include many small ethical tax practitioners committed to accountability, transparency, and integrity, and assisting clients in navigating these complex filing processes. We have long called for better licensing reforms to block unscrupulous actors from harming taxpayers. This legislation directly addresses those concerns through common sense measures by improving information sharing between the oversight bodies about concerning activities, explicitly empowering enforcement against violations, and establishing new consequences to deter deceitful conduct. House Bill 452 protects citizens from predatory practices that hurt the reputation of ethical preparers. We have seen vulnerable communities victimized and trust in preparers eroded due to gaps enabling a small number of unprincipled actors to evade accountability. Closing those regulatory loopholes upholds both taxpayers and the many businesses like our members committed to high standards. The Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals urges a favorable report on House Bill 452. Thank you.
And Chairwoman Atterbury and distinguished members of the committee, thank you again for this other opportunity to testify. As you've heard, my name is John Hart. I'm the director of the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic at Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service. And through our Low Income Taxpayer Clinic program, we represent taxpayers in dispute with the Maryland Comptroller and the IRS. Many of our volunteers are actually also professional tax preparers who want to do good and volunteer in their spare time to help those in need. Of the many reasons why Maryland taxpayers might need assistance, one of the most troublesome kind of cases we come across is when they've been victimized by a fraudulent or irresponsible tax return preparer. Trusting the wrong preparer to handle one's taxes can result not only in the loss of a refund, but it can also result to severe penalties, years of identity theft. In some cases, we've seen even further extortion. Fraudulent tax return preparers specifically target low-income, elderly, and low English proficiency taxpayers trying to take advantage of any lack of knowledge about the tax system they can find. They lure in victims with false claims, such as claiming they can get bigger refunds than anyone else, or that they can complete a tax return over the phone. After the fraud is perpetrated, it's rare that any money is recovered. The victim still owes their taxes. If the refund was inflated, then even if it wasn't fully stolen, then they must pay back any portion of the refund they were not legally entitled to. Comptroller can offer limited relief to victims of these scam preparers in some circumstances, but either way, the scammer has made off with the money of an innocent taxpayer, or the state of Maryland is left with missing revenue. House Bill 452 is a multi-part bill that, if passed, would greatly improve the state's ability to efficiently respond to reports of fraudulent tax preparers. It will mean fewer cases of Maryland taxpayers falling into debt simply because they trusted the wrong person to do their taxes. I respectfully request the committee return a favorable report on House Bill 452. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Is Victoria Kelly here? No.
See her.
Okay.
I don't think she made it. Thanks.
Any questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 452, House
you.
Bill 453.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Brooke Learman, Comptroller of Maryland. Thank you for giving me time today to discuss the shortest bill I have ever put in. This bill makes a few small corrections to the tax general article, including a reference that only applies to fiscal year 1990 and another that erroneously references the incorrect subtitle in the Housing and Community Development article. Correcting these erroneous cross-references ensures legal accuracy and prevents confusion in interpreting and applying relevant sections of the law. This is what we would call technical corrections bill. I look forward to working with the General Assembly on this important legislation, and I urge a favorable report of HB 453. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 453, House Bill 454.
Great.
Callie Schumitz.
Yep, I think Tammy, Emmeline, Rebecca.
Oh,
Oh, no, aren't we on 4?
you're favorable with amendment, you can come up later, okay. Karen Cirillo.
Oh, sorry, I was in the wrong one. Sorry. How are you? Good. Great. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Comptroller Brooke Learman in support of House Bill 454. Our bill to authorize the agency to partner with other public and private entities with expertise in complex tax compliance and to ensure there are appropriate protections in place to protect confidential tax data. So we also have several amendments that you should have in your packets. So at its core, this bill has two main objectives. First, it aims to safeguard taxpayer data. With the growing expectations of data sharing, it is crucial to ensure that the receiving organization of any data that our agency has complies with the security protocols and state guidelines, as well as the best practices set forth by the IRS and our agency. So I just want to emphasize again, we also always have to stay in compliance with the IRS. And so we look to both their best practices and the state's best practices when we are thinking about how to protect data. Second, Maryland is facing a tax gap of at least $9 billion, which is the difference between the amount of taxes that is owed to the state and the amount that is actually paid. With the tax system becoming more complex and individuals and corporations finding new ways to conceal their income, it's essential for us to equip our staff with the necessary tools to uncover tax avoidance schemes and collect money that is owed to the state of Maryland under current law. This bill accomplishes both of those goals. In consultation with partners and other government agencies and with advocates, some of whom you'll hear from, we crafted the language of this bill, including the amendments, to protect the data of Maryland taxpayers while allowing the Comptroller's Office to be proactive in forging new compliance-related partnerships. So to close this tax gap, we need to be able to collaborate with partners who possess specialized expertise or proprietary software, IT needs that can help our compliance division, which is our auditing team, identify valuable information about the undisclosed assets and income. Some of these potential partners could be the Northeastern States Tax Officials Association and the Multi-State Tax Commission. As individuals are generating income through various new channels, such as social media influencing, short-term rentals, and cryptocurrency, it's imperative for our agency to adapt to these changes by using innovative technologies to detect unreported income and unpaid state taxes. This requires us to establish partnerships with others, which involves sharing data. And I want to be very clear, this is about tools and partnership. And I'm grateful for the help that you gave us and the governor did in helping to grow our compliance team. We have actually one of the smallest auditing teams of any state our size in the nation. Right now, we have 272 compliance pins. In New Jersey, they have over 700 people doing this work. And in Tennessee, not known for being a bastion of big government, they have more than 120 more people doing compliance work than we do. So we recently actually conducted a small pilot project to identify unreported income, but it was very limited. We shared no data. But even without that, we identified millions of dollars. in unpaid assets. And our compliance team, after that is identified, our compliance team can then go out and search for it and get it. So this bill is all about making sure that we can partner, share data responsibly, protect taxpayers, and ensure that we are closing that tax gap. I will note there is one continuing legal discussion over a may versus a shall in one of our amendments. And we are currently in discussion with the governor's legal team and our AAGs to sort that issue out. But I look forward to working with the General Assembly on this important legislation, and I urge a favorable report on HB 454. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Atterbury and members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumitz. I work with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. For those who aren't familiar with our organization, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization, and we believe all Marylanders should be able to achieve their full potential in a healthy economy that offers a widely shared and rising standard of living. And I think part of that is ensuring that the state has the resources needed to provide services that allow families and communities to thrive no matter where they live. And so as Comptroller Learman was saying, there is a significant problem nationally with taxpayers underreporting their income, which according to estimates from the IRS and GAO amounts to about $400 billion per year in unpaid taxes nationally. So assuming Maryland has that same rate of underreporting, that's about $3 billion per year in taxes that are owed to the state that we were not currently collecting. This problem is due to individuals and businesses either intentionally or unintentionally reporting less income than they actually made and therefore not paying all the taxes that they owe. So if I were to report less income on my tax forms than is reported on my W-2, that is very easy for the Comptroller's office to flag and ensure that I correct the issue and pay all my taxes. But for more complex returns, these different forms of income, self-employment income, business income, a very wealthy individual who has a variety of income streams, it's much harder for them to just detect any discrepancies. So we support House Bill 454 as a necessary step towards strengthening the ability of the Comptroller's office to address this underreporting and perform more complex audits. And to do so in a way that really protects sensitive taxpayer information at the same time. So with the state facing significant and growing structural deficits in the year to come, and closing even a fraction of this large tax cap could really go a long way to addressing our budget needs. And addressing underreporting is also really a matter of fairness. It increases trying to cheat the system and avoid paying taxes will be held accountable. So for those reasons, we ask for a favorable report on House Bill 454.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Karen Cirillo. I am a certified public accountant here in Maryland. I'm here representing the Maryland Association of CPAs and my 8,000 fellow CPAs across the state. We want to be able to fully support House Bill 454 in its present form. We are favorable but seeking additional amendments. We are grateful to the Comptroller and to her staff for working with us over the past few weeks, and we continue looking forward to working on additional amendments so that we can come up with a bill that in an amended form we can come back and fully support. CPAs do support the goals of this bill to give the tax agency, the Comptroller's office, the resources to go after that tax gap and to close it, to find the people who aren't paying the amounts that they owe under the law and to assess those folks and get those revenues into the Maryland Treasury. We CPAs work with good tax-paying individuals and businesses. We want you to go find the tax cheats who aren't paying what they owe. We do have a few current amendments that are in discussion, not only the item that Comptroller Learman mentioned about the shall versus may in the requirement for a written agreement. For example, and just very quickly, I've got a list in my testimony, but very quickly, we're looking for some clarity on exactly who is able to receive information from the Comptroller's office and clarity on that written agreement. Secondly, we're asking that the bill provide that people who receive tax information from the state are not allowed to be paid on a contingency fee basis. We have experience across the country with other states who use bills like this and share data with folks who go out and help with tax audits and tax compliance, where if they're paid on a basis of how much they propose an additional tax, they have incentive to blow in and blow out, issue a big assessment wrong, and it is limited to it limits the taxpayer and the state agency to having to fix that bill. We're also asking that the penalties for improper disclosure of tax information mirror what's in the Internal Revenue Code. The $1,000 that's in Maryland statute that is a penalty for misusing this is too low. So we're looking for additional amendments, and we look forward to working with you on.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions, Delegate Buckle?
That was exactly what my question was, I guess, to my friend. Good to see you, Comptroller. And we talked, in your office weeks ago about you need more auditing help. You don't have the ability to do these things. Do you have a position on both the Chamber of Commerce and the CPAs Association have said they want to support the bill? They think it's a good idea.
Right.
Very concerned about the contingency fees. And I am too, because you incentivize people to find a problem. Sometimes they find problems that aren't there.
Here comes Mr. Griffin.
So I would just add, so I should say, we are favorable. They're not on our panel. We already use a commission-based approach for audits through our unclaimed property division. So, and we have not had any complaints. So we would like flexibility, because we've already been using this approach on audits for a different section, and we've never had a complaint about it. So although we may not choose to use that way, we think that we should have the flexibility to be able to pay in a way that is industry practice. But I also think it's important to remember that we as the agency will always be in the driver's seat here. This is not, we're not going to say, oh, you go out and do all these audits. That's not the model that's set up here or that we're interested in, because we have our own auditing agents. And so we're not going to go hire an outside, a big outside auditing firm to go do that. We're not looking to do that ever. That's just not what this bill is about. It's not what's contemplated in this bill. This bill is about generating leads, and so that our auditors can then go follow up on those leads.
Do you have any, you mentioned the sort of industry practice, and comptroller is sort of a strange position. Most states don't have the exact same type of job that you have.
Sure.
But I assume that you're part of some multi-state organization of state tax.
So many.
Yes, so many. I'm sure it's fun. Depends where the where the meetings are
So
sometimes.
it's like, it's a really good time at that Federation of Tax Administration conference every year.
in like Wichita, Kansas or somewhere. It's probably a great day in Wichita. But do you have any information as to, because both the CPA Association and the Chamber have mentioned that other states, and it may not be based on what you just said, the way that you intend to do that under the bill, but other states that do employ sort of third parties to go out and find the unpaid taxes and use the contingency fee system have had difficulties. Do you know whether there's something kind of across the board, a multi-state approach to that?
So it's a good question. And like you said, every agency is set up a little differently. So other agencies are hiring people to be their auditors, to be outside auditors. And that is not what this bill, that's not our plan. That's not what this bill is about. So think about, here's an example. There's an IT company out there that can scrape publicly available data on short-term rentals, right? They're not auditing. They are simply going and scraping the data and saying, oh, look, like we found 100 people. This is the income that they reported through the, dozens and dozens of Airbnbs that they own in Ocean City. Here's the information. They give it to us, and then our agents follow up on that information. Well, one way to pay them is to just pay a flat fee. Otherwise, we could, I'm not saying we will do this way, but if we have the flexibility, we could say, okay, well, we're going to, instead of giving us 1,000 potential leads, 900 of which lead nowhere, and so we waste our time chasing those 900 leads that lead nowhere. give us, your best leads and we will pay you based on how much we recover, because then they aren't incentivized to just give us everyone. They're only incentivized to give us good leads that we then go follow. But they're not doing the auditing. We are. They're just giving us potential leads. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I just have a philosophical concern, but we can talk about that later. But does the bill specify that you're not going to hire third parties to actually conduct the audits?
That's not in the bill. Yeah.
Would you have an objection to making that, like, it's not in the bill, but would you have an objection to, just so that everybody feels good when they read it and vote on it, to put a line in there that says that this bill does not authorize nor permit the comptroller's office to hire third-party entities to directly conduct audits of taxpayers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's allowed in the bill right now. So I'm happy to go through it and look at it with them and with you to show where that's not allowed. But sure, I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to talk through that with you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have, and Madam Comptroller, I'm gonna I know he's not on your panel, so you can step back if you want. I mean, he's an okay kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let him testify.
Yep.
So, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Andrew Griffin with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, here to support the comptroller's bill and the intent of it. We think this is necessary to give her and her office the resources they need to do their job and to do it well. I think that's really important. We have outlined, I want to say they've been great. We have suggested a handful of amendments, which they have accepted. As my friend with the CPAs suggested, we do have still two concerns outstanding. They're in my written testimony. I do want to draw specific attention to the may versus shall mention. It kind of goes to the heart of the bill, whether or not it says may versus shall. This is about binding data use agreements and how people hold taxpayer data. If they're not required to agree to be good custodians of that data, we'd probably be opposed to the bill. And so I think whether or not it says may versus shall is really important, particularly as this body debates other privacy and data use agreements and policies. So with that, I'll conclude my testimony. I'm happy to take any questions, but look forward to coming back and fully supporting this.
Okay, any questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 454.
Last but not least,
House Bill 455.
Great. Now for this one, Rebecca and Tammy.
Emmeline.
Yep. Great. Hi, how are you? Good. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, Comptroller Brooke Learman here in support of House Bill 455. Thank you for giving me the time today to discuss this bill. It is our bill to set a timeline for business tax filings and personal income tax returns to be filed electronically, with thoughtful and appropriate exceptions, of course. So we're almost 2 weeks into tax season. I know it's a really exciting time for all of you. And what that means for the Comptroller's office is that right now, as we speak, dozens of employees are doing one thing and one thing only. They are opening mail. They are sitting around tables. We hire temps every year to sit around and open mail. Every year, we receive more than 750,000 pieces of paper, and nearly 1 million paper checks and some cash too. This is a staggering amount of paper correspondence that has to be touched by multiple people, hand verified, and then scanned into our computer systems. And that's just to get it into the system, let alone making sure once it's scanned in, it's tagged appropriately to the right person in our system. And I will tell you, it is not always. And that doesn't include any of the actual tax processing time or work, which requires often lots of manual intervention. So you may have heard me say this before, but Louis Goldstein used to brag that he took the office of the comptroller from pencil and paper to the mainframe. We are now moving from the mainframe to the cloud. In fact, 2 days ago, on Tuesday, February 6th, we opened our brand new portal for all business tax filers, Maryland Tax Connect. This allows businesses to file all manners of taxes online for free, view their accounts, pay outstanding balances. Think of it as similar, like if you go on your bank account, right? You'll be able to see everything in real time. This legislation that we have here builds a timeline for when businesses with more than 15 full-time employees will have to use that system to file on pay online rather than mailing us in their tax returns. Additionally, this legislation sets the timeline for filing and paying personal income tax electronically by tax year 2030, which seems like a really long time away. Again, with numerous reasonable exemptions built into the bill. There are exceptions for seniors 65 and older, single filers with incomes over 200,000, widows with a dependent child, and Marylanders with disabilities. Our team worked to be as intentional as possible about these exemptions, including getting stakeholder feedback and gaming out scenarios that may arise to ensure our agency is being thoughtful in this transition to online filing. So there are many reasons that this is a significant priority for me and our agency. Our goal is to best serve our shared constituents, and a part of that includes being efficient and responsive. What we know for certain is that in order to be as efficient as we can, we need to avoid paper filing whenever possible. We have the technology, and it's clear that utilizing it would benefit both taxpayers, really. It is dangerous to send in your tax returns with checks and monies. Things happen. And it protects our agency as well from waste and fraud. We also, digital filing also enables faster processing time, quicker turnarounds for refunds and returns, and significantly reduces the risk of errors, which creates more work for our agency and more delay for taxpayers. This will free up staff time, enable them to focus on more complex and customer-facing work, and it will enable us to produce more accurate and timely reports and financial forecasts for the General Assembly. So this will be a big deal for our revenue estimates, so that you all, when you come into session every year as well, know that all of the money has been counted and is in because returns have been filed. So Maryland Tax Connect is now available for our business taxes, withholding, corporate income, sales and use, and cannabis taxes. And over the next 18 months to 2 years, it will be available for every tax filer in the state. And at that point, we want people to prioritize filing online. I should add that about 91% of Marylanders do file online already. It's that last few folks that we want to make sure file online. And finally, one other thing. We are not worried, and this is why we have the exemptions, about sort of senior tax filers, lower income folks with disabilities. Their tax filings are easy. But what we are seeing on a regular basis are 500-page tax returns that are incredibly complex. Pass-through entity tax returns being sent in. Sometimes people are just having their accountants do their taxes, print out the returns, and mail it in. There's no reason for that. They can file online. It costs the state money that we should not have to pay for those filers to do that. It is also a way that they try to hide things from us. And so for many, many reasons, to protect Marylanders, to increase efficiency, and for revenue forecasting, I ask that you consider giving HB 455 a favorable vote. Thank you.
Chair Atterbury and members of the committee, my name is Rebecca Olson. I am the CEO of the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants. We're committed to promoting the CPA profession and supporting the over 8,000 members we have in Maryland. As CPAs, we are well-versed in electronic filing of tax returns. E-filing has been shown to expedite processing times and reduce errors, decreasing the likelihood of audits, corrections, and the need for additional follow-up. As CPA tax preparers, these are all favorable results. While recognizing that e-filing may not quickly solve the system limitations that have caused delays in the pass-through entity processing, we appreciate greatly the support of the comptroller's collaboration and dedication in addressing those issues. We also recognize the diverse needs of Marylanders and appreciate HB 455 includes exemptions for Maryland's most vulnerable taxpayers. HB 455 is another step in modernizing and creating a more transparent and efficient tax collection process. Therefore, on behalf of the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants, I respectively request a favorable report of HB 455. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Emmeline Head, and I'm the founder and CEO of Southern Bell Cleaners, a commercial janitorial provider in the thriving Prince George's County. Thank you for providing me this opportunity today to discuss House Bill 455, which will require most business taxes and fees to be filed and paid online by calendar year 2026. As a small business owner with 7 employees, as a consumer that makes a lot of online purchases, and a taxpayer who files my personal taxes online, I was puzzled when I couldn't easily file and pay my business taxes on the comptroller's site. When I reached out to the comptroller's office for a little bit of assistance, I was told that the new system would be up running early February of 2024, but there wasn't an easy option for me to file and pay online yet. The best option for me was to go and visit a comptroller branch in person. So I went out to Greenbelt to make a payment, and it really was not that convenient because I am a small business owner, and so I'm really trying to grow my business. This week, I was really thrilled to see that the comptroller's office went live with the new business tax component of the Maryland Tax Connect, which looks way more convenient, or a lot more easier, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of online banking. This new, free, secure, and user-friendly interface will make it easier to pay my business taxes, and most importantly, it's online. Fewer and fewer of my peers who are entrepreneurs are really going against having documents going through the mail, just because a lot of items are being stolen or mailed. So a lot of us are really avoiding that. And as we all learned during COVID-19, that just about everything can now be accomplished online, including documents, notarizations, and other vital business needs. And this is just one more thing, and the simplicity and security of it will be available to all taxpayers. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I urge a favorable report for HB 455.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the House Ways and Means Committee. My name is Tammy Bresnahan. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy for AARP Maryland. And you know that AARP is a nonpartisan organization, but I don't know if all of you know, and we are here in support of House Bill 455. But since 1968, the AARP Foundation has provided a tax aid program to help over 78 million taxpayers across the country. What does that mean in Maryland? In 2022, 774 AARP Foundation tax aid volunteers helped more than 40,000 Marylander residents claim $27 million in federal refund and over $2 million in state refunds. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, but at over 127 sites in Maryland, including senior centers and libraries and other convenience centers. And it's a whole team of people. It's not just one person that goes, it's somebody that does an intake. They are all certified by the IRS. They have a Chromebook and they file those taxes electronically. But we do know, and what we like about this bill, we do think that there's a need for it. We like that there is a carve out for those people 65 and older. There are people out there that are 65 and older. I'm not one of them, but there are some that, you know, still do not trust. They have privacy issues with electronics. The older you get, sometimes the less, savvy you are around tech. So we are very appreciative for that carve out. We ask you for a favorable report on House Bill 455. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's a question, Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Comptroller. Really applaud your efforts to modernize.
Thanks.
One of the questions that I have, and this is more constituent driven, is sometimes when filers are doing paper or processing, they may miss a milestone, incur a small fee, but maybe they've already submitted payment and now they have this balance, the zombie balance of $5 or $100 doesn't really get picked up into the next year.
Yep.
So will this system be dynamic in the sense where if I go on there today and I was supposed to pay it, and 1 week from now I go back on, will it automatically incur those fees or fines or extra charges so that when I'm paying the full amount?
Yes, that's the idea of this new system, is that it will be dynamic and will stay up to date. Yep.
Right, great. Thanks so much.
Delegate Wims.
question for controller. Did you say that some people send cash? I just
People
wanted to
send cash. People send it so many interesting things. Yes, but people do send cash and it's dangerous, right? And
Yes.
you know, it's hard to emphasize how much more efficient we could be if more people filed online. I don't know, there's no, there's no hammer in here. There's no fines if you don't file online. We just want to tell people file online.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Feldmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Comptroller, for bringing this bill and for all the progress you're making in your office. My question is about when we get to the point of individual filers, being required to file online. I know you're aware that last year I tried to help a little bit with the number of paper returns with a bill that would have prohibited additional fees from tax preparers for the online filing.
Right.
Because that fee serves as a disincentive. That bill was not successful, but I am thinking about, as this becomes a requirement, what happens with those fees. And I understand if folks are filing directly with you, that would be available free of charge, right? Do you have thoughts on either, fees from preparers simply for the electronic filing, or at least making sure that returns are provided in a form that you can accept them?
Well, yeah, I mean, they can't, I don't know that I have too many thoughts off the top of my head. But the idea is, we want to make sure that people know that they can file online in Maryland for free, right? You've probably heard that the IRS is also developing its own software. That's for federal. We are very focused on making sure that everybody knows that they can file for free in Maryland, and anybody can right now. Just that our old system, iFile, which is still the one for personal income taxes, is very clunky. And so, but the new system, Maryland Tax Connect, will be up and running in 18 months or so for personal income. And then we'll have a few other fees to get in after that. But, we wanted to make sure we kick the dates out far enough to make sure that it would be available and up and running for a couple years so people had a chance to get used to it.
Right.
So I don't know that I have too many thoughts now on that, but I appreciate the question and the efforts.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 455. House Bill 470, Delegate Plavkovich Carr. Yep. Yes.
So good afternoon, colleagues. For the record, I'm Delegate Julie Plavkovich Carr, here to present House Bill 470. This bill is about two things: tax fairness and making sure that our counties have the money that they need to invest in public schools in order to meet their obligation under the blueprint for Maryland's future. We all know that too many Marylanders are being squeezed economically. Rising prices have meant more careful budgeting for many of us, and for others, they've gone without enough food, rationed medication, or even lost their housing. Meanwhile, the wealthiest 1% of Marylanders have a smaller tax burden than any of the rest of us. A millionaire pays 9% of their income in total on all types of state and local taxes. That is a smaller proportion of their income than any other income bracket. It's time that billionaires and millionaires pay what they truly owe in taxes so that our public school students get what we promised them in the blueprint: a world-class education for every student, regardless of their race, their socioeconomic status, or their zip code. This bill isn't just about funding education. It's also about helping working families. As a body, we have cut taxes for working families through expansions of the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Maryland Child Tax Credit, yet we've bound the hands of our partners in local government in terms of making their tax systems fairer. In 2021, we enacted enabling legislation to allow county governments to move away from regressive, flat local income taxes and to adopt multiple income tax brackets. Such progressive taxation mirrors the existing practice of the state and the federal government to charge lower tax rates on lower incomes. To date, 2 counties have taken advantage of this new authority. You might be thinking, what's the problem? We already allow counties to move away from flat taxes. The problem is the current statutory cap on local income taxes. That cap has not changed since 2001. Presently, 13 of Maryland's counties are at the maximum allowed rate. And that's 2 more counties since I presented this bill last year. So more than half of our counties have no room to maneuver to cut taxes for low and middle income residents without creating a massive hole in their budget. This enabling legislation would allow counties to raise their local income tax rate on high income earners and only on high income earners. Without this legislation, more than half of Maryland's counties will be unable to provide targeted tax cuts without reducing county revenues. As counties look at ways to provide tax relief to residents and to make investments in education and transportation, local flexibility with income tax brackets is key. I thank the committee for its consideration.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Elrich, County Executive of Montgomery County. Chair Atterbury, thank you for opportunity to speak today. Quick thank you for everyone for your willingness to consider this, and I want to particularly thank Delegate Plakovich-Carr for your leadership on this. I think you know Montgomery County has put a lot of money into schools. Last year, I proposed an unprecedented almost 10%, 10-cent tax increase, and we wound up close to 5. But we did that because we had no ability to raise money on except on property taxes. We are a 3-2 county, which meant in order to meet the demands of Blueprint, in this case, the big educational bump in terms of teacher salaries that everybody's going to have to make, we could not get there without a tax increase. And since we were at the 3-2 cap, the only place to go is property taxes. It's regressive. It's not fair. There are better ways to do things. So we're encouraged that this is up again for consideration. We want to be able to consider funding things and funding things broadly. We need the breadth of this system to make that possible. We provide an offset against the property tax to lower income earners, but you have to have property to benefit from the offset. And so for a lot of people in lower income tax brackets, the only benefit they could possibly get would be any change in progressivity. We would introduce progressivity. We can't do it now because, as she said, we would dig a hole in our budget where we'd introduce it with a 3-2 cap. But this gives us the ability to be more progressive, to meet the demands that are going to be coming down the road every year with the Blueprint, and to be able to do that without having to raise our property taxes on everybody. We've looked very closely at our competitiveness with Virginia. The District of Columbia publishes a study on comparable residential taxes and comparable commercial taxes. Montgomery County rates 7 out of 8, 8 being the lowest, 7 being the second lowest on residential. And we are the lowest county in the entire DC metro area on commercial property taxes. So I'm not worried about this affecting our competitiveness because we're already the cheapest state in the region. We figure that we have room, we could raise more revenues and still be very competitive for the people across the river, which is our goal. So thank you very much for your consideration. I hope we get a favorable report, and I look forward to being able to have an easier track to funding my schools.
Stuart Pittman, Anne Arundel County Executive. Thank you for having us here, Chairwoman Atterbury and Vice Chair Wilkins and the whole committee. We're one of the 2 counties that did create progressive taxes when you gave us that authority 3 years ago. So Anne Arundel County's tax rate was at 2.8, and we raised it to 3.2 for our top earners, and we lowered it for our lower earners, folks making under $50,000. So we created progressivity, just like we used to have in Maryland before it was made a flat rate when it was piggybacked on the state rates. We didn't get much opposition. In fact, most people thought it was a really good idea. We do 7 budget town halls every year, and people were asking for this, and they finally got it. I felt bad for the counties that are at 3-2 that couldn't create any progressivity. You know, as County Executive Elrich said, it's really hard when you have a cap on your income tax, so everything has to go over to property tax. I mean, that's probably how Baltimore City ended up with over $2, where the rest of us are at about $1 on property tax. We don't want other counties being in that position. It's very regressive to increase the property tax. We don't feel like we can come to the state these days and ask for additional revenue to fund education and transportation. So this is for education and transportation. And it also loosens up other things in our budget. We have a real crisis in hiring police officers in our county right now, and we want to be able to provide higher salaries so that we can overcome that. So and the other thing I want to say is that it's very important that the Maryland Association of Counties is here. I think you'll hear from them in a moment. These are the counties across the state. Some of them will do this, some of them won't. We're just asking for authority to make that difficult decision ourselves as county leaders who do budgets, and just loosen things up on us so we have some flexibility to pay our bills. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties. You have our written testimony, and I think you've heard a lot from the panel already. This is a continuation of a bill from a few years ago, and what we're asking for in this bill is the ability to have a conversation locally, a conversation about tough choices ahead, much like the conversations that are underway at the state level, a conversation about how we need to raise revenue to deliver on the services that we need to deliver each and every day. We're facing right now in this proposed budget $500 million in cuts to our local highway user revenues. That's the money that goes into our roads. We're facing cuts to our community colleges and ballooning budget pressures to deliver on the local share of the blueprint. And we all want to make that happen, to be clear. But just like the state, counties are going to have to raise revenue. It is what it is. And what we're asking for is the ability to do it in a more equitable way. You've heard that 13 counties are at 3.2%. I'll put it a different way. 2/3 of Marylanders live in a county with a maximum with the maximum local income tax rate. 2/3 of Marylanders live in counties with the maximum income tax rate. That means the only place those counties have to go is the property tax. Everybody hates the property tax. Everybody hates the property tax. It's not like the income tax where it just comes out of your check. It's not like a small transaction at the point of sale, like the sales tax. You have to stroke a check. And not to mention it's regressive. It's very regressive. So again, for 2/3 of Marylanders, the only options those counties have is to go to the property tax. We don't want that to happen. We're asking you to please give us the flexibility we need to deliver on the investments the state wants us to make. We're asking for flexibility to control our budgets a little bit more, to have the ability to be more progressive, just like the state and federal government has. But for some reason, our hands have been bound and we don't have any ability to do progressivity without losing money. No county is in the position right now to take on revenue losses. In fact, again, the counties are going to have to raise revenue, just like the state. Please let us do it in a more equitable way. That's our favorite report.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Samantha Zwirling here on behalf of the Maryland State Education Association, representing 75,000 educators. Thank you to Delegate Plakovich-Carr for introducing this legislation and continuing this fight. I don't have much to add from the panel, but I would just say that, as others have mentioned, this is enabling legislation, and it so allows the counties to decide if this is the right decision for them and to have conversations take place in their communities about how they're going to be able to invest in schools and other sorts of resources. All of our counties are working to try to meet the commitments of the blueprints to their students, to their families, and to the staff in those counties. And this allows more flexibility for those decision makers to invest and to meet our commitments. So with that, thank you, and I urge a favorable report.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. We'll start with Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question. I don't know if Delegate Plakovich-Carr, maybe County Executive Elrick, whichever one of you want to respond. While you guys were talking, I just did some quick, cell phone research. As Delegate Plakovich-Carr knows, I don't use the computer so well, but I use my cell phone. And it was a little bit surprising, and data suggests that Montgomery County in particular has suffered a tremendous exodus of taxpayer income over the years, meaning that there's an outflow of wealthier individuals from Montgomery County. They're leaving. These are people who pay a significant portion of the tax burden. And then I also looked and saw, and you tell me if I'm getting this wrong, I'm not making it up, I'm taking it from a report that says that the combined state and local income tax bracket in the District of Columbia which is its own city and everything, is 9.25%. It's 8.95% for most of Maryland's jurisdictions that border, for both of the jurisdictions that border DC, Montgomery and Prince George's. And it's 5.75% for your neighbors across the Potomac in Virginia. By raising your county property tax rates for the short-term goal of paying more for needs. And I'm not saying the needs are illegitimate, but I'm going to raise the tax rates on the shrinking pie that I have. do you think that you're ultimately in the midterm and long term contributing to the effect of people leaving, people who are well off, upper middle class, wealthy, they're leaving and they're going to other places, and then you don't get anything from them. Instead of getting 3.2%, you get 0.0. Is that a concern for Montgomery County when you look at the data?
Thank you, Delegate Beckel, for the question. Well, as I've told the committee before, there's very robust economic research on why people move. Very, very few people, like really, we're talking outlier numbers here, move because of taxes is the top reason. People move because of jobs, because of transportation, to be near family, because they want a different climate. There are a variety of other factors that kind of go into like, what kind of life do you want to live? And that's largely what is driving people's migration patterns. I would also just say, I think if you take your argument to the extreme, like we already have 13 counties that are at the cap, like why would anyone live in one of those 13 counties if they were making decisions purely based off of tax rates? Because they could move to a county on the Eastern Shore and pay 1% less in income taxes right now.
So I don't want to argue with you because you're a very good friend of mine, but what I would suggest is you hit the head nail on the head. It's jobs. So I lived, I went to college in Fairfax, Virginia. I lived in the DC area for many years. You can live in Fairfax and work in DC the same as what you can live in Gaithersburg and work in DC, but it costs you less by and large. You can live in Loudoun County and work at a variety of places the same as what you can live in Montgomery County. And so I would agree with you, maybe people move to Florida because they want not just all the taxes. Florida has zero state and county income taxes. They're the fastest growing state in America by an extremely wide margin. I don't think that it's a direct correlation, might be a factor. But I don't mean to say anything negative about Montgomery County. I like Montgomery County very much. Vice Chair Wilkins, it's a beautiful place. Got some wonderful areas. But I have found in my life experience that it's not terribly, terribly different, the living experience of Montgomery County versus, say, Fairfax County or Arlington or Alexandria. It's the same suburban metropolitan area surrounding the same core capital city. And so that's my only concern, is that sometimes with tax policy, what looks good for a few years has a long-term deleterious effect because it drives economic decisions, if not from individuals, from businesses. And that's really my only opposition to the bill. I'm a big believer in local control. People should get to decide what they want to do. And if it has a negative effect on them, that's fine. But Montgomery County and certainly Anne Arundel, they are economic drivers for our whole state. We envy you. I wish that we had the federal facilities and the research facilities and the jobs and the government contractors. I wish we had those in Western Maryland. We'd have very different conversations if the FDA and NIST and other places were in Cumberland as opposed to being in Montgomery County. But if the county doesn't have that concern, I appreciate it. I just hope that you consider that. I've read comments that, Virginia's sort of eating our lunch with respect to growth, with respect to a variety of metrics. And I'm concerned that these policies, maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, contribute to that.
So I'll just say from a county perspective, taxes are complex.
Sure.
And income tax is only a part of it. I could also tell you that when somebody moves from Montgomery County and leaves a $5 million home, that
somebody buys
somebody else who can afford a $5 million home. So there is a balance in this. But I'll give you an example of the District of Columbia. The only reason DC has a lower tax rate combined than Montgomery County is because their property tax is 85 cents. The reason they've got an 85-cent property tax on residential property because their tax on commercial property worth over $5 million is $1.89. In Fairfax County, their base tax rate for residents is $1.09. But they pay for their transportation and all these other items on a budget through a 12.5-cent tax on every square inch of commercial property in Fairfax County. Tyson's Corner total taxes on commercial property go up to $1.50, and they have a BPOL tax, a license tax that generates Fairfax County $200 million from the private sector that Montgomery County never sees. So while these other places have some wrinkles in their one tax, I will tell you, one reason you can have a lower tax rate to some extent is because they're able to tax commercial property. They're not bound like we are with a single rate where I have to tax commercial and residential the same. So I could lower my taxes if I had a fair tax system altogether.
I appreciate the information. Thanks.
Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this might be a question for council as it relates to the disparity grants. So if you want to bifurcate and drop below I believe it's 2.8% for your lower income, but you wanted your higher income to be above this cap, would you still qualify for the disparity grants in that county?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident we addressed this in the 2021 legislation, but
Yeah, there's a technical fix, and if it's not in this bill, it's easy to put in the bill. So there was a lot of back and forth when this bill first passed to handle that.
Right.
And I'm sure we can make that clear in the bill.
So,
but I think it might be an underlying statute. We'll double check though.
okay, so just to clarify, if under current law, if you were to drop lower income below 2.8, that would opt you out of the disparity?
No, we held counties harmless who are part of the disparity grant program in that 2021 legislation. We'll find the statute and we'll share it with you.
Okay, thank you.
We need to clarify it.
Delegate Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good to see you, County Executive. I just wanted to build on something that you were just touching on there, which was the inflexibility under the current lack of flexibility for you all on setting a more progressive tax rate for income tax. And that ultimately forces you to have to make decisions on property taxes, right? Can you touch on that a bit further?
So last year, when the school system came with a request for $300 million, about 3/4 of it was wage-based because everybody has to get up to 60 grand. Our starting teachers were at 53. They took a big bite out of it. They still didn't get there. They have to 2026. But confronted with that, there was no way in the world we were going to be able to pay any of that without raising taxes from someplace. And so the only place we had to go was for property tax. And the only reason the property tax is not more than 5 is the council made a decision to take the last 2 years of federal money and use it for permanent hiring, which just means this year I'm dealing with about $40 million that was paid for with federal money that I've now got to figure out how I squeeze into the existing budget. So it was a real dilemma for us, but the choice would have been not to fund the schools or to make major cuts in social systems. And when you look at that, it undermines all the work you do in schools. If I'm not feeding and giving healthcare to kids and trying to stabilize housing costs, I'm just complicating the job a teacher has to do. And I'm biased because I used to be an elementary school teacher in a high poverty school. So I've seen this before.
Great, thank you. And Delegate, I'm seeing here in the fiscal note, we won't be raising taxes for anyone, any single filer making less than $250,000 or any joint filer making less than $300,000?
That's right.
Okay, and I see there's this bill gives flexibility for up to 6 tax brackets. County Executive, would you envision a system like what we have in Anne Arundel County where it's just 2, or could there be multiple tiers?
I'm looking at multiple tiers, and I will say I don't want to go to the cap immediately because the whole point of having space is having space. And if I go to 3.7 and balance a budget, then if say it is Kerwin that winds up driving this even higher, then I'm in a similar box again. I've got nowhere to go, but then it would be the bottom of the rates.
Okay.
So we'll try to figure out a balanced approach to this. It gives us a little wiggle room at the end of the day.
And last quick question. So, and I know this ultimately will have to come to the council as well, but we could see a situation where the highest earners are the ones paying 3.7, but folks that are in more of a middle tier income range are still paying the same.
Or less.
Or less, yeah.
I mean, the goal would be, middle-class families struggle too. If you're dealing with any family that's trying to deal with 1 or 2 kids in childcare and spending $20,000 a kid for childcare, you can make a case that families earning, in what we consider more modern incomes probably could use some relief as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Henson, then Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. County Executives and County Executive Pittman from Anne Arundel County. I think you heard some of the concerns expressed by my colleague from Western Maryland about if this sort of progressive taxing is implemented, what it might do to your higher earners, and if there is an exodus from the county. With Anne Arundel County having implemented a progressive tax rate on income, could you give us your impressions of how it's gone in the county and if some of those fears have been founded?
Well, nobody's told me they're leaving as a result. I haven't seen any data that's happening, but I think more important, I have not heard a single complaint about that. I hear a lot of complaints about the reassessments of homes right now and how their values are going up and therefore their property taxes are going up. But it was sort of a nothing burger. And you know, on the county council, we had actually Republicans supporting our budget this time, which we haven't had in the past. So it happened, and very little opposition.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's exactly what my question was. So a lot of people are very surprised that their property taxes haven't gone up, but it's obviously it's assessment driven. So what has been like the percentage of assessment rates that's gone up in Montgomery and Anne Arundel County? And like, what has that added to as far as the budget? Because then this will be on and above on top of that.
So in Anne Arundel, our homestead credit is 2%. So it can only go up 2% a year, even if it went up 25% in its assessment. So we have to keep reminding people of that and making sure that they get their homestead tax, but that's how much it goes up.
Okay.
We have a flat credit. It's an income ITOC credit, and it's like about 675. But it's flat for everybody, so it's not very progressive in and of itself.
So even though the assessments are going up,
but there's a wash on the assessments because it's only a third of the county that got reassessed, and I think our assessments are somewhere between 20 and 24% in that third. But at the same time, because of the destruction of the housing market by the Fed, might as well say it, you know, we're looking at, you know, a major cut, loss of revenues in transfer and recordation taxes. So while the property tax went up, we got dinged with substantial loss of revenue because of lack of transactions. If this were a normal year, we'd be really, really happy. We're just happy that it's going up as much as it is.
Okay.
That's a major thing to just consider for everybody. Anne Arundel went from 198 million in transfer taxes to 100 million. So we lost almost $100 million in just a couple of years. Fortunately, we knew it was coming and budgeted for it, but it's just another strain on counties.
And I'd say the other thing to remember when we see those giant numbers, assessment increases, that is phased in over 3 years.
Right.
And the percentage, you have to take that percentage and divide it by 3 because it's yearly, right? So those numbers look crazy, but like you've heard, there are other areas where we're losing revenue, and you're not going to, the counties won't feel that revenue all right away. It's phased in, and there's the homestead cap. So we're not allowing anything to go up more than 10% across any county.
but when you do have that 3-year and then it hits for families, it's hitting hard right now, hitting very hard. Thank you, ma'am.
Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the county executives, might have missed it, but can you all just give us a high level on like what type of expectation of revenue generation you would see if this bill were to pass and you were able to do it in the county council?
I can say from our perspective, we don't know yet because the state, when you get the breakdown of incomes from the state, the last break point is $500,000, and then it's everything above 500,000. So if you were going to graduate things, you don't know how much graduation you would have to do to offset how many cuts you want to make in people below the 250 or 350 mark that's in the bill. So we're waiting to get that. We've requested the data. We've requested some more information. Like I said, I was interested in more than 2 brackets. So we're looking at what the fine tuning is. Who sits between 350 and 5? Who sits between 5 and $1 million, maybe $1 million and 5 million? So we're looking to see what we can do. So we don't have a target number.
And we got about 10 million the first year and another 10 the next year. We were pretty conservative in how we did it. We only raised it up to 3.2 for folks making $500,000, 400,000 and 500,000 for single filers. So we could lower that number and create more revenue still. And we've considered that. But there's a lot of different ways to do this, and it affects how much revenue you get. But it was significant to us.
Thank you. And one more question, Madam Chair, to the delegate. Isn't it true? Well, a set of questions real quick, Madam Chair. Judiciary style, Madam. Isn't it true that Baltimore City's property tax rate is higher than everywhere else in the state?
That's my understanding, yes.
I believe that it's about 0.9% roughly higher than everywhere else. And isn't it true that the goal of this bill is to provide kind of the flexibility for county or city governments to be able to reduce those property tax?
That's exactly right.
So passing this bill, a yes vote from me on this bill would provide my city council the ability to reduce property taxes in Baltimore.
It certainly would give
Yes.
them another tool, yes.
And the mayor supported the earlier version of this, and the one that didn't pass that go to 3.5, and he's very supportive of this one as well, because it creates that possibility of lowering the property tax in Baltimore City. Yeah.
I appreciate all that. I just wanted to get on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Wu and then Delegate Bernice Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For Delegate Plotkichkar, so I pronounce your name correct. And so I have a question for you. So when you put like single family $250,000, and why for the like double family it's not a $400,000 or $500,000 just times 2? Why put it $300,000?
So that is the income thresholds in the bill are tied to what the top income brackets are at the state level currently. So that's why we chose 250 and 300.
Because like for a lot of double earners, probably all of them probably hit that threshold $300,000 for a lot of middle class families. That's what I'm thinking, right?
So I can just add some context because this came up on another bill in the revenue subcommittee today. The $250,000 joint filing mark is the 90-something percentile. So it is already the very upper echelons in terms of incomes in Maryland. There are not many people who are above that.
Yeah, for single filer, I think that's pretty high. But for a family like 2 double earning, right? That is 300,000 pretty low.
So that actually, the statistic I just said is for joint filers. I'll follow up. I'll share the information from the comptroller's office with you.
I see. Thank you. So
And it's taxable income, so after deductions, so you could be making more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for county executive, I have a question for you. I remember the Montgomery County raised the tax rate recently, right? So I really support how we need to get more revenue for the education. Thanks for MAPE coming here. Like whenever we raise revenue because we said we fund education for more funding. However, a lot of situations, we raise $10 million, probably only $1 million goes to education. Is there any mechanism, say, we raise the revenue because we want to fund education, but actually we put maybe 50% or 80% that extra revenue go to education? Is there any mechanism somewhere?
You know, taxes don't come with handcuffs. So it's hard to like say absolutely, but I know what we were faced with and what the budget increase from the school was. And the only way we were going to raise the revenue over last year's request from the school was to do this. And it was largely focused on teacher pay.
Sure.
And, you know, but I will say that, you know, there are other things we'd like to do. We are struggling to build a transportation system that makes us competitive with Virginia, partly because of the way all the other taxes are structured. You know, so things that our ability to raise money also increases our ability to attract businesses, to invest in life sciences, to do incubators, to do the kind of things we know we need to do if we're going to build a business base that ultimately would let us share the revenues a little bit more broadly. So we're looking at all the tools. You will see from us a request for local taxing authority on transportation, because that's what one of the things that Virginia has that we don't have, that has enabled them to build things we would only dream about. I can't even come close to what they invest. So if you want us to be economically successful, and I like the fact that Montgomery County's revenues can help drive possibilities in other jurisdictions around the state, but we can only do that if we're able to build an infrastructure and support a school system that makes us a place that people want to come to. So I look at this as, this is truly investments. Nobody's making money on this.
I think I share that sentiment, right? So I think the question is, in a lot of cases, we raise tax because we want to support education. That's already behind that, I would say, the desire to support that. At the same time, for many counties, I look at their revenue share go to education. That percentage didn't go up. Like every year, sometimes I see the raise revenue, but that is not proportionally goes into education. That's a concern. I'm afraid I want to fear there should be some mechanism say, okay, we want to raise family support education, but we want to get a little higher share of that extra revenue goes into education. Is there any mechanism can can we like change that from
So-
county executive side?
So Stuart and I are part of the Mako group, and we have Kevin here representing us. But he's representing the Mako position because it was a bipartisan position. And everybody there, we were not the only jurisdictions hit by the blueprint. Everybody knows this is coming. Everybody, the 13 counties are already in the box, or they'll wind up in the box that we're in. And everybody needs more flexibility. So these things are coming because I think regardless of political party, there's a recognition that the flexibility is a good thing and the reliance on property taxes alone is not a good thing.
Thank you.
Delegate Miracle North, then Delegate Fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Plakovich Carr and Mr. County Executive, and this is a good conversation. I wanted to follow with what Delegate Rua talked about regarding the brackets. When I'm looking at the 250 and 300, even though we're dealing with the bracket at the state level, and even though we're talking about deductions, I'm thinking about the small businesses that had, a lot of them had clearly are unfavorable. What is your response to their unfavorable testimony? Because I'm thinking of a lot of small law firms that do make this money. And, granted, this is enabling legislation for the counties. What do you have in mind to prepare yourself for the fact that there might be some opposition regarding these small firms, particularly these law firms?
Thank you for the question, and I'm happy to defer to other witnesses to answer this question. But again, I'll say that the 250 and 300 mirrors what we do. Our top income tax bracket in Maryland starts at 250 or 300,000. And I'll just note that because the bill is enabling, that is a floor. It doesn't mean that counties would have to raise at that level. They could decide to go to a higher income tax level for, say, people who make $1 million or more a year or 2 million or more. They could set it at anything higher than that they wanted.
And my other question is that there was one part of the committee testimony about commission on the tax structure. Do anyone know about this particular bill that was proposed? I have no idea the history of it because I'm still newish, sort of. So if you could speak on that, why that's not considered.
Yeah, several sessions ago, there were several bills, I think, including from some committee members who are still on the committee on this front. Those bills never advanced.
Okay.
I would just add too, I mean, I understand the opposition, but the bottom line at the state and local level, we're going to have to raise revenue. So it's going to be property tax, personal property tax, income tax. That's where the money is. So I understand the opposition, but what we're looking to do is have more levers to pull locally to try and balance it out, to try and make it more equitable. But there is no scenario where counties are not going to have to raise revenue to pay for the blueprint. It's just, and again, we support it. We want to be able to provide and provide the funds and make it work. But the only way to do that is to raise revenue. And over the next few years, those are the tough decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing the bill forward. Thank you, County Executives, for both being here. I guess, so I did use my computer, not my phone. I was very excited. My friend from Allegheny County I was curious about what's going on in Virginia. So I looked up some stuff real quick. I was curious myself. And I heard a couple of words that were really interesting. Progressive and regressive kept being mentioned during your testimony today. The governor of Virginia has put in for a 12% income tax decrease in Virginia, but he is offsetting it with a 1% sales tax increase and massively expanding the number of products that can be incorporated into a sales tax. I guess my only question for the delegate is, who benefits the most when there's an income tax decrease? What community or what level of income earners benefit the best with an income tax decrease? And then what income earners are most impacted by something like a sales tax increase?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I have not followed the news in Virginia as specifically, but I'll say if you're talking about a flat across the board income tax decrease, that disproportionately benefits people at the highest end of the income spectrum, whereas sales and use tax and other flat taxes disproportionately impact people at the lowest end of the income spectrum because they are spending so much more or perhaps all of their income on consumable goods and housing, as opposed to wealthier people who can afford to save money and set money aside and don't spend it all paycheck to paycheck.
Well, thank you so much.
And I would just add that while that's been going on in Virginia for the last 40 years in the United States of America, there's been a major lowering of tax rates for the highest income earners. And so if you look back through history, we're sort of at a historical moment where the pendulum is going to have to swing back to progressivity.
Final question, must be the most pressing question you've ever had in your life.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for bringing this bill. So I just want to kind of tie last year to this year just a little bit in relation to this bill. So last year, the General Assembly very graciously passed the indemnity to trust bill that raised the recordation tax effective this year. And we're very grateful for that bill. And obviously, grateful the Maryland Association of Counties withdrew opposition for that bill to allow us to move forward, which is going to move the economy forward here in Maryland. Would this bill help offset some of those losses from that bill that we passed last year?
And I'm sorry, I actually didn't hear which bill from last year.
The indemnity to trust recordation tax increase?
It would, it certainly would. And again, you know, that's a tough bill. I understand the economic development component of it. We appreciate it being delayed, but this bill would certainly help to offset any revenue losses in that bill.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the testimony on House Bill 470. House Bill 484, Delegate Maggioni.
Good news is this is far less complicated. So good afternoon, everybody, Madam Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm Delegate, for the record, Delegate Nino Mangione of District 42A in Baltimore County. And it's my pleasure to be here with you today to offer House Bill 484, which is titled the Taxpayer Disclosure and Protection Act. As all of you know, as was just previously discussed, that Maryland faces a severe budget deficit in the future. And the simple fact of the matter is that the state of Maryland, it gets its revenue from one place, and that's the Maryland citizen. And there's no secret that we're holding discussions right now about raising taxes and fees to cover the coming deficits. So House Bill 484 is not about whether or not we should raise taxes and fees. We will have that debate, and each legislator will decide for themselves whether or not that is appropriate. House Bill 484 is about accountability and transparency, and I believe that the citizens in Maryland are entitled to that from their elected officials. I believe every vote to raise fees or taxes should require a yay or nay vote anytime that a tax or fee is raised. I do not believe automatic increases such as the gas tax should increase every year without each of us going on the record as to our position. Today, as we know, the gas tax automatically goes up. I do not believe permits or fees should be increased without a recorded yea or nay vote. And I think if we're asking Marylanders for more of their hard-earned money, that we should be transparent in that request and accountable to our constituents. House Bill 484 lets the sun shine in on the revenue process, and I believe our constituents have a right to know what we are doing when we increase their burden to the state for any reason. Our constituents have a right to know how we voted, and I, for one, am prepared to answer for my vote, and I believe each of you are as well. I urge a favorable vote on House Bill 484 on behalf of the Maryland taxpayer, and they deserve transparency. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as Delegate Buckle has been educating me this week about certain kinds, I know it's scary, certain kinds of fees. And we talked about this earlier in the week about different kinds of fees. And I'm kind of new around here. Are there other taxes and fees that other than the gas tax, what type of things are we looking at here that have been voted in with those types of either automatic increase or no kind of transparency with it?
Thank you. And believe it or not, I'm learning from Delegate Buckle as well. Yeah, there's the gas tax, obviously, number one, and then we're finding out that in MDOT, for example, the Department of Transportation is looking at fees, increasing fees that we will not be voting on, with the airport parking, for example, being one of them. There's some port fees that are going up. There's MBA fees. I was doing a little research behind the scenes, and there's, believe it or not, interior designer fees are going up, contractor license fees, fees collected for stationary engineer's license. So I actually reached out and from the comptroller's office, and they do not have a document that tracks all these automatic fee increases. So I'm not even sure how many there are, but we're learning more as we go. And that's what helped me come up with the idea to bring the bill forth. So thank you.
Any other questions? Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, well, for clarification, Madam Chair, sorry about that. All these people learning from Buckle, it makes me nervous. My wife encourages me not to learn from Buckle, but anyway, you had mentioned the gas tax with the repetitive nature. So do we have any idea as to what that looks like with that year-over-year increase as to the impact of that?
So I did a little research. I don't have all those numbers in front of me, but I can talk a little bit about last year. For example, in the summer of last year, when it went up in July, it went up to 47 cents per gallon. And from 2 years prior to that, it was roughly 30% cheaper. So because of the way it's structured automatically to increase, a 30% increase in just 2 years took us to 47 cents, which at the time became the fourth or fifth highest gas tax in the nation because of how our gas tax is structured. So I hope that answers. I can get those numbers offline.
Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 485. We're just going to go out of order a little bit because Delegate Attar has to go spend the rest of her life in the Judiciary Committee. So House Bill 537, Delegate Attar.
Madam Chair, and thank you for accommodating my dual life in judiciary. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members. For the record, I'm Delegate Dalia Attar, presenting House Bill 537, Income Tax Credit for School Bus Transportation. Last session, this committee passed a bill creating a task force to study transportation for non-public schools, and the governor signed that bill into law. The task force's job was to study the current options of travel available to non-public school students and to develop recommendations on how to reduce the number of students traveling to and from school in private vehicles, thus reducing traffic congestion and reducing the environmental impact of many personal vehicles. The task force consisted of a diverse group of individuals selected by the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and MSDE. This group worked diligently for several months, analyzing this issue and the best way to solve it in Maryland. The task force that was led by MSDE came up with 2 recommendations. The first one is this bill, which you have in front of you, which would provide a refundable tax credit for qualified bus transportation expenses. The second recommendation was to create a grant program to help pay for the expenses. And after discussing with stakeholders the 2 options, it was determined that the first recommendation, House Bill 537, would be most beneficial to addressing concerns regarding traffic congestion, safety, and environmental impact. As Gabriel Rose from MSDE stated in his final report, and I'm going to quote him, all task force members remained invested in the subject matter that was presented to them and made sure that these meetings were not wasted and were productive for all involved. It has been an honor to serve on this task force, and I wish to stress that this task force was facilitated with an open-minded position without favoritism and was taken seriously by all who participated. Colleagues, now more than ever, we are living in a time where it's not safe for our children to be walking to schools, especially children who are at an increased risk of hate crimes. Now more than ever, we are trying to find ways to reduce congestion in our roads, congestion that leads to safety and environmental concerns. And now more than ever, it's time for us to take the recommendations of the task force and make them a reality for all Marylanders. And I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to have Sarah Mikey come up, Ariel Frankston Morris, Garrett O'Day, Rabbi Ariel Sadwin. And then there's someone that might be with us virtually.
I believe he's on the screen now.
Judah Prero.
Yes.
And you're just here for moral support, sir? Okay. Okay, whoever would like to go first, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, honorable members of the committee. My name is Ariel Frankston Morris from Teach Maryland. I'll be very brief and not duplicate all of Delegate Attar's words. It was such an honor to be on the non-public school transportation task force. I, again, really want to echo the to commend Gabriel Rose and MSDE for facilitating it, and the group came to consensus, which was fantastic and very impressive. I will just add the tax credit that we agreed upon addresses safety, environment, congestion, and workforce. It makes a lot of sense for Maryland to do all we can to encourage parents to send children to school on buses. Please recall that Maryland has a history of transportation tax credits to encourage getting cars off the roads, evidenced in the employer commuter tax credit. We are experiencing a time of significantly heightened caution for many communities, including those targeted for hate crimes. We must be monitoring and organizing the movement of children, and dozens of cars pulling up and kids hopping out haphazardly at school is not ideal. For these reasons, I request a favorable report. Thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sarah Mirsky-Mickey. I'm the Deputy Director of the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and all of its agencies, here today in support of HB 537. For us, it's not just a public safety walking on the streets issue, but also an issue for children who are visibly Jewish. A lot of our children walk on very busy streets, including Park Heights Avenue in Baltimore City. There have been incidents for members of the Jewish community walking on Park Heights Avenue, having hate bias incidents happen to them. In Maryland from 2021 to 2022, there was an 84% increase in religious hate bias incidents in Maryland. Of the vast majority were at the Jewish community. And since October 7th, there's been a 300% increase in hate crime and hate bias incidents for the Jewish community. So for us, it's about having these kids not walking every single day to school. Of course, the environmental impacts and the general safety of walking on the street is also vitally important. But for these reasons, we ask for a favorable report of HB 537. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. My name is Rabbi Ariel Sadwin from Agudath Israel of Maryland. I also serve as the president of Maryland CAPE, which is our non-public coalition for non-public schools across the state. In addition to what my colleagues have said, this is a bill that will do so much for so many children, and it's good policy in the state of Maryland for the reasons they stated, for the reasons included in my written testimony. I also was a member of this task force, and shout out to the great work that they did, the exhaustive process to look through all the different options and coming up with this model that Delegate Attar's bill has. And we appreciate her leadership on this matter, and we are hopeful for a favorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Garrett O'Day, Deputy Director of Maryland Catholic Conference on behalf of our about 50,000 students in Catholic schools. I also Vice Chair the Non-Public School Coalition on behalf of our 135,000 non-public school students with Rabbi Sadwin here. I'm here to support this bill. Thanks to Delegate Attar and Senator Hedelman for championing this bill over in the Senate. A big shout out to Gabriel Rose again for running a very well organized task force at MSDE this summer and that considered all options, with this tax credit mechanism being the preferred method of delivering busing for non-public school students. Of course, as the Catholic Conference, we do take many positions in favor of policy that protects our environment, and this is another one. This bill would help alleviate traffic congestion and prevent hundreds of extra car trips on the road each morning. Up the road, as many of you have seen, will very soon have a very large new public high school, which many of you have seen being built on 97. It's across the street from Archbishop Spalding, which is our largest high school in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. So we pose what would happen if 1,300 parents are dropping off their kids at the same time as the new public high school across the street. Very ripe for instance like that, where you have a lot of traffic congestion. And imagine how much a bill like this would help our environment if the parents could pool busing to minimize the traffic every morning and afternoon. That's just one example. Another good one is Archbishop Curley up in Baltimore City, that actually is one of the very few schools that is able to do this, and it alleviates dozens of extra cars during both rush hours, clogging up traffic up in their neighborhood. But states like New York have been providing transportation to non-public school students for decades. And on behalf of all of our students, we thank you all for considering this bill. We think it's a great, no pun intended, vehicle to provide busing. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have Mr. Pereiro, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Judah Prero, and I'm a resident of Baltimore City who's been engaged in the practice of environmental law for over 2 decades. This bill has personal significance to me, as earlier in my career, I served as a Maryland State Assistant Attorney General, both under Attorneys General Curran and Gansler. My client was the Maryland Department of the Environment, and I was counsel for MDE's Mobile Source Program, which is the division that deals with the air pollution impact of cars, trucks, and buses. I have submitted written testimony for the record that details the environmental issues that this bill will address. But I want to emphatically express my belief that promoting mass pupil transit can have environmental and health benefits that accrue to all Marylanders. The expenditure is a worthwhile investment. Accordingly, it's my hope that the committee reports the bill out favorably. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for anyone? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. That concludes the testimony on House Bill 537. We'll go back to the regular order. Delegate Buckle, House Bill 526. And while he's walking up there, I recommend anybody who's learning from Delegate Buckle, you might want to slow your roll. And love you. I love. But 2, if you have a bill that still needs to be filed, the deadline is 5 o'clock, but they will be coming around to this committee. I don't know what time, but they will be coming around. So you don't have to run over there. Delegate Buckle.
There we go. Whoa, it changes every year, buddy. It changes every year. This is House Bill 526 is not just my bill. It's a bill that very graciously Vice Chair Wilkins is on the bill. And I think that there's a real reason for that and a reason for why the 2 of us, in addition to other members of this committee, may be interested in the bill. A couple of years ago, this committee worked very, very hard on the sports gaming framework, and there was a tremendous amount of discussion with Subcommittee Chair Patterson and others who were here for that debate about how many licenses would be fair to award for not only for mobile licensees, but in particular for brick and mortar licensees. We came up with a classification of Class B licensees. These were individuals who were not named in the bill, like your major casinos, your sporting teams. There were a few others that were also included in there. But Class B licenses were designed to allow entrepreneurs and businesses across the state to apply for brick and mortar sports gaming licenses that may enhance their other operations. It could be restaurants, it could be off-track facilities, it could be a wide variety of businesses. The judgment of this committee and ultimately of the legislature in conjunction was to set that number at 30. 30 may not be right. It may have been too many. It may not have been enough, but the judgment of the legislature was 30. We delegated the responsibility to review those applications and determine if they were compliant with law and appropriate to award a license to an entity called the SWARC, the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission. The SWARC decided in their judgment after the first round of applications closed, I believe if you take a look at the fiscal note, they only had 6 applications for these Class B brick and mortar licenses across the state, 6. And they made a decision at the end of the conclusion of that first, fairly quick period of time that businesses had to evaluate what is sports gaming, can we afford it, can we partner with someone to do all of the necessary compliance and technical things. If you didn't get in real quick, they cut you off. And so for the last period of time, this administrative body has determined that despite the legislature's decision to allow up to 30 licenses, they're only going to allow 6, and they won't let you apply tomorrow. In many parts of the state, there are no brick and mortar sports gaming facilities, even though there may be individuals who operate businesses within that state who would like to open them. Part of the reason I can tell you, and I know Vice Chair Patterson remembers this well, part of the reason why the number was hit upon at a fairly high number of 30 was to allow opportunities for minority entrepreneurs to get into this space. It's a very complicated space. It's not something you can just go out and do on a whim. And we wanted to provide opportunities for folks from all backgrounds to have a chance to explore these opportunities with appropriate partners to get the brick and gaming licenses. I have no qualms with the SWARC. There are a bunch of wonderful people who I think did a good job of vetting the applicants, but they've made the decision that's not their decision to make. It's our legislature's decision to make. We decided that there should be 30 licenses. And so what the bill does, there's one other minor component to it, but what it does is it simply says that up through 2026, the window is open. You can go to the SWARC and you can apply. We're not telling them what licenses have to be granted or where they have to be granted in, but if you're a minority-owned business in Southern Maryland or the Eastern Shore or Montgomery County or anywhere, and you have an opportunity to go do this and think it's in your best interest to bring sports gambling into your facility, you'll at least get a chance to apply. If you are a rural business, there are no brick and mortar sports gaming facilities west of Longshots in just south of Frederick City in the state. That's a fairly wide geographic swath serving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And we don't have any because nobody applied in the first year or so that it was open. And now there may be individuals years down the road as sports gaming has become a little more predictable. They may have an interest in applying, maybe, maybe not. But right now they can't. They go to the website and it says, we do not accept any applications. So this bill would remedy that and would say, you know, the doors are open for the consideration of applications up to the statutorily mandated amount that this legislature decided on of 30 for the next couple of years to allow entrepreneurs and businesses to at least have an opportunity. The second thing that the bill does is it extends the MBE reporting requirements of the sports gambling, which would otherwise terminate on July 1, 2024. It extends those MBE requirements out to July 1, 2025. Because again, you know, it was our intention to make sure that MBE participation was part of the sports gambling program. And if we don't pass legislation to extend that, those reporting requirements will, of necessity, they'll expire. I think it's a very reasonable bill. It doesn't mandate anyone to do anything except this. It mandates an administrative agency to take the decision of the legislature seriously and requires them to at least give people a chance to compete for, to apply for the licenses, because otherwise there won't be a single other sports gambling business that comes to the state. They've essentially been told there's no room at the inn and we don't care about you anymore. So that's really all it does, Madam Chair, and I thank the committee for its consideration.
Any questions for Delegate Buckle? Okay, seeing none, thank you. And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 526. Delegate Buckle, House Bill 507.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 507 is a bill that the committee has seen before. It was something that came out of the Task Force for Economic Development for Western Maryland. We have narrowed the bill this year to eliminate Washington County, not because we don't love our friends in Washington County, but because, you know, thankfully, I think Washington County is beginning to do better. They've seen some larger scale job and population growth potential, which fuels home development on its own. The private sector will come in and will build homes. We've talked a lot this session from the governor's speech yesterday to conversations all of us have had that housing is a problem in Maryland, that we do not have enough housing stock. And as a result, our housing prices go up. In the corner of the state that I live in, Allegheny and Garrett County, we have very, very little residential new housing construction. I believe that last year, Allegheny County issued less than 20 new permits. The reason for that, there's multiple reasons, but one of the primary reasons is that it's cheaper to build homes in neighboring West Virginia and Pennsylvania. You've all heard me say this. I don't mean to belabor the point, but you can be in downtown Cumberland from Mineral County, West Virginia in anywhere from 1 minute to 15 minutes. And you can be in downtown Cumberland from Bedford and Somerset counties, Pennsylvania, which are both larger counties than us, in anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. We are literally a border county. Probably as much or more so than any other part of the state. And for a variety of reasons, home builders and individuals have chosen to build in those suburbs of Cumberland and in those suburbs of Frostburg, because you can still have your job in Maryland, which a lot of people like. You can even sometimes send your kid to school in Maryland if you're creative enough, but you don't pay the taxes, and your home builder doesn't have to comply with certain things we make you do, like sprinkler systems and septic and well systems. You would be shocked to find out, I'm being sarcastic, that in many small counties in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, they don't have all of the requirements that we have in Maryland. So building a house in Allegheny and Garrett County is significantly more expensive than building it 10 minutes away in another state. What the bill does to try to incentivize, we want home construction. We want our people to stay in our counties. We want new people to move to our counties. We want folks, frankly, from a lot of your jurisdictions, rather than to move out of the state of Maryland, to perhaps come to our region. So what the bill does is it provides up to a $10,000 property tax credit, 50% of which would be borne by the county themselves, and 50% would be borne by the state for the purchasers of these middle market homes. Many of you from the metropolitan area will find it crazy that, you know, our middle market homes are 150,000 to 250,000. In many of your jurisdictions, there are no such homes, or if they are, they are dilapidated. There are builders who probably toward the upper end of that scale in the low 200s can build homes in Allegheny County if people can get sort of the property tax credits. It also includes an income tax credit to incentivize the builder. As long as they're building at least 10 of those homes in Allegheny or Garrett County at a time, or within 1 year, they can apply for an income tax credit of up $7,500, per unit that is transferable and refundable. We are trying to incentivize. D.L. Horton, which is the country's largest home builder, is currently looking at a project in Cumberland, Maryland. D.L. Horton is probably one of the largest home builders in many of the exurban and suburban counties across the state. But in order to attract those types of entities, we need these types of incentives. Garrett County situation is a little bit different. I don't know how many of you have been to Deep Creek Lake. You cannot purchase a home within 5 miles of Deep Creek Lake. I'm lucky. I was left a cabin on Deep Creek Lake that my great grandfather and grandparents built. It is not anything plush. You can't live there during the winter because we turned the water off. Until I was 12 years old, it did not have indoor plumbing in terms of the ability to use the bathroom facility. So it's nothing special about it. It has an assessed value of almost $500,000. You cannot build anything within the lake area for less than $1.5 million, $2 million these days. That has a very skewing effect because the builder will go and build that house for $1.5 million near the lake. They will not build a $225,000 house that someone who actually lives in Garrett County and works in Garrett County can afford 20 minutes from the lake because there's no profit for them. It just skews the market. This is an effort that has been supported universally by all of the folks in our community and the home building community to try to give us a chance to become more competitive. And I would hope that the committee takes a strong look at it and gives us that chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista McGee. And then you do have one person that's virtual in support as well. So, and then we'll do questions if anybody has any.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I am Krista McGee with Maryland Realtors. However, today I am speaking to you on behalf of the nearly 300 realtors comprising our 2 boards in the westernmost portions of the state, the Historic Highlands Association of Realtors in Allegheny County, along with the Garrett County Board of Realtors, and they are requesting your support of House Bill 507. This bill would incentivize builders in the area and perhaps attract more throughout the state to build these middle-income homes in these 2 counties. Additionally, elderly residents and those approaching the retirement age, given the age of most of the homes within the area, are finding that their homes no longer suit their physical needs, and that the only option that they have is to either relocate outside of the region or perhaps to one of the neighboring states. The lack of inventory and the competition over the very few available options makes it impossible for them to age in place. The incentives that would be offered to those who build these middle income price range would increase inventory and prevent our population from leaving. Realtors from our local boards have had discussion with existing large-scale employers, and they have expressed that these businesses are in somewhat of a business holding pattern in terms of further expanding their business operations. The reason they are stuck in this holding pattern and unable to create more jobs for the area is due to the lack of middle income housing and to accommodate the additional workforce. The fact of the matter is these two counties from Western Maryland are behind. Just yesterday, Governor Moore delivered powerful words, constantly reminding us to leave no one behind. Therefore, I am here today urging you not to leave them behind and request your support. Thank you so very much.
And Krista is from Allegheny County, proving that not everything is bad, so do it for her, if not for me.
And you have a Mr. Beeman with us who was here with you last year in person, I believe.
He is. Mr. Beeman is the county attorney, and for full disclosure, he appears on behalf of Allegheny County, and for full disclosure, he also works with me.
Okay. All right. For 2 minutes, Mr. Beeman.
Thank you, Chair Atterbury. Thank you, members of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm testifying today in my role as the county attorney and on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners of Allegheny County, asking for your support of House Bill 507. Delegate Buckle began to reference the fact that less than 20 homes were built in Allegheny County in the year 2023. When I testified before you in support of this bill last year, I provided you with some statistics. At that point in time, in 2022, there were 17 homes built in Allegheny County. At no point during the prior 10 years had more than 30 homes been built in Allegheny County in a year. Unfortunately, as I sit here testifying before you today, 10 homes were built in Allegheny County during the 2023 year. Significant to that discussion is the value of those homes that were built, those single family homes. For the totality of 2023, those 10 homes represented a value in real estate of $2.7 million. We heard the county executive from Montgomery County earlier talking about $500,000 homes. And as soon as someone vacates one, they are filled. That's not what we're discussing here in Allegheny County. We're struggling to build 10 homes at a $250,000 value. The commissioners would ask for your support of this bill. While it does seem that this would cause a loss of revenue, commissioners acknowledge that loss of revenue, but they hope to incentivize home builders and new construction through the use of that incentive. And we would ask for a favorable report on House Bill 507. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. That concludes the testimony on House Bill 507. Committee, if you have bills, please step into the hallway now. The chief clerk is there waiting for your blue backs. And House Bill 447, Delegate Ziegler. And a Lindsay Thompson is signed up favorable as well. You can come on up. 2 minutes.
Madam Vice Chair, shall I just start or wait? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I know you hear this false premise all the time. This truly is a very simple bill. So I will try and make it very brief. So the purpose of this bill is to reestablish and raise an income tax credit that we used to have for deer donated to a food bank or a charitable organization. The program lasted from 2018 to 2022, and it provided a tax credit of $50 per deer, but the cost of processing is now closer to $90 or $100. So we'd like to reestablish the program and raise the income tax credit to $75. So it helps food banks, and hopefully it will help to reduce the deer population, which is really hard on farmers, but also causes an incredible number of car crashes. Anyone who is a gardener knows this is a problem. They eat the understory of our forests. They're very hard on small wildlife and ground nesting birds. We have too many deer, and the hope is that we can address both problems with this income tax credit. So I ask for your favorable report on HB 447. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Thompson, and I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland Grain Producers Association in full support of this bill. So previous estimates by the National Agricultural Statistics Service are that wildlife cause over $10 million a year in crop damage, and over 75% of that is from deer. That number was back in 2012, and we would argue that that number is significantly higher. I'm here not only as representation of an organization, but also as a farmer, and I can tell you that we just finished our taxes, and deer damage cost my family over $20,000 this year in crop damage. And we are very active in using our crop damage permits or our depredation permits for these deer. The issue is each family only needs 1 or 2 deer in their freezer each year. And so we are paying to have these processed and donated to the food bank. So 1 deer provides 144 meals to the Maryland Food Bank. And we believe that by offering this tax credit again at $75 up to a total of $600, it would be extremely beneficial not only for Maryland farmers and motorists, but also to those who would receive those meals at the Maryland Food Bank. And we would ask for your favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Delegate Miller.
Just real quick. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick. What's the cost to process a deer right now? Do you know that roughly?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, at the processor that we use, if you just get fully ground, it's about $90.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it had gone up. I know there's a lot of issues with that in my county. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this.
Any other questions from the committee? Delegate Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Ziegler, is this your first time in Ways and Means?
Yes.
Easy question.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you. That concludes the testimony on House Bill 447. We are going to go a little bit out of order again because Delegate Jones can't get here. So we're going to call House Bill 608. Delegate Wilkins. And yep, come on up, your panel.
Need to start. Time this year.
Madam Vice Chair, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, committee. Very glad to be before our committee for the first time this session. So do I get? Thank you. Thank you so much. Such a friendly committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Janelle Wilkins, and I'm pleased to present HB 608, Earned Income Tax Credit Individuals Without Qualifying Children. This bill expands the eligibility of the EITC and the value of the EITC by raising the maximum income requirement for single filers and allowing individuals without qualifying children to claim the Earned Income Tax Credit. This bill would also adjust, I should say, the credit for inflation each year as determined by the Comptroller of Maryland. We know that the EITC is one of the most proven anti-poverty measures. It literally puts money back in the pockets of our lowest income earners who are working. And it's estimated that for every dollar that the state spends on the EITC, $1.23 comes back to our local economy. This bill would help bridge financial gaps for Marylanders and make the credit more valuable to our lowest income earners. So please support me in expanding our earned income tax credit for our low wage earners. I urge the committee to give a favorable report to HB 608. Thank you.
Chair Atterbury and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 608. Madam Vice Chair, thank you for sponsoring this legislation. My name is Tanea Moore, and I'm the Director of Policy with the Cash Campaign of Maryland. CASH stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope, and we're a nonprofit organization that promotes economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families across the state. This bill expands access to the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, for single filers who are unable to claim dependents by increasing the maximum income requirement and connecting it with the state's cost of living adjustments each year. The proposed amendments will impact around 100,000 low-income working Marylanders. This bill will help low-income single filers who do not claim dependents lessen the amount of taxes owed and also potentially increase their refund. These single filers are young veterans, first-time expectant parents, aging out foster youth, and also non-custodial parents. Maryland ranks 7th among the states for highest cost of living. A single adult without dependents would currently need to make at least $40,000 a year in order to pay for basic expenses. Currently, Marylanders who are working close to full-time minimum wage jobs earn around $30,000 annually, which is too much to qualify for the EITC, even though their salary is less than the amount needed to cover basic expenses. Low-income workers, even when working close to full-time, are left in vulnerable positions and are likely to experience financial hardship. By increasing access to the EITC for single filers, Maryland has the opportunity to invest in those who need it most and put them on the path to long-term financial stability. For these reasons, I encourage a favorable report on House Bill 608, and thank you again for the opportunity to testify and also advocate on behalf of our clients who unfortunately could not be here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumatz, Vice President for External Relations with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. And thank you to Vice Chair Wilkins for introducing this legislation. Because of the past work of this committee over the last several years, Maryland has one of the strongest earned income tax credits in the country. It's a very powerful anti-poverty tool. House Bill 608 kind of closes the final missing piece that would allow us to have a robust EITC that serves all working Marylanders. Through the Family and Prosperity Act last year, you increased the value of the credit for workers who don't claim dependents on their taxes. So now that people can get up to $600 cash back at tax time. However, the maximum income eligibility is very low. So someone earning just $17,640 a year, they're no longer eligible for the EITC if they don't claim dependent children. And as a reminder, as the prior panelist stated, your tax filing status doesn't necessarily mean you're not caring for kids, you don't have kids. That's just you're not claiming dependents on your taxes. House Bill 608 would expand eligibility up to about 180% of the federal poverty line. It's about $27,000. So, single filers at this income level are effectively taxed further into poverty right now, unlike low-income households without dependent children. Receiving the EITC helps people cover basic expenses or pay for larger one-time expenses, maybe buying books for a college course or covering car repairs to help them get to work. We also know that, as Delegate Wilkins stated, the money that we're invest in the EITC goes back into our economy as people in very low incomes tend to quickly spend any extra money as they're living paycheck to paycheck at our local. Ask for a favorable report on House Bill 608. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 608. I want to just take a second to welcome my sisters in the Divine Nine here. There are you have two SOARs on our committee that are here. So welcome to the Ways and Means Committee. Next, calling House Bill 490, Delegate Jones. And whoever you want to bring up with you.
Apologies. Thank you for skipping me for a second. I was chairing a budget subcommittee meeting. Ready? Okay. Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee, I come before you today to introduce a bill with an amendment that would extend the sunset of the income tax subtraction modification for donations to diaper banks and other charitable entities. That amendment does that for 3 years. For some of the new members of Ways and Means, I got to be a member of your family for a little over 2 years. And so this was a bill that I had passed as a member of the committee. So it's so good to be back. This committee did in fact pass HB 711, which created a subtraction modification in 2021. But the issues facing Maryland parents in need and period products and those who are insecure for them have not substantially changed. I've seen the severity of this need firsthand through my experiences working with food distribution lines throughout my district, both in the Annapolis city as well as throughout the county. A lot of what my office does is help to coordinate this and bring members of the community out for those who do have to give to those who need. And the severity of the need has not, in fact, changed. Diapers and other hygiene products are always the first to run out. Food banks and diapers pantries consistently struggle to have the supply to keep up with the very serious demand. Diaper need, which is the lack of sufficient diapers to keep infants dry and comfortable, is tragically prevalent. And also remember that the ability to keep a child dry and clean also reduces the amount of pediatric ER visits, right? Emergency room visits with a number of infections and kidney infections and so many and severe diaper rash. So this is also something that very easily has a ripple effect. According to the National Diaper Bank, 1 out of every 2 U.S. households with children struggles to afford clean diapers for their babies. And in Maryland, 72% of mothers with infants are in the workforce. However, most childcare facilities, nearly all, require diapers to be provided for their children in order to attend daycare. Nationally, 25% of parents with diaper need reported that they have missed an average of 5 days of work or school to not having enough diapers in order to leave their children at childcare. So again, another ripple effect is the workforce. Diaper expenses combined with the cost of infant child care in Maryland that averages 42% of a single parent's income. This puts Maryland parents in a dilemma where they must make horrific trade-offs between food, utilities, among other things. In addition to diaper donations, the subtraction modification includes donations of hygiene products for children and for period poverty. Period poverty is obviously the lack of access and safe hygienic menstrual products during monthly periods, as well as having that be inaccessible to the folks. In 2021, 1 in 4 teens in the U.S. missed class due to the lack of period supplies. And in Maryland, 1 in 9 folks between the ages of 12 to 44 live below the federal poverty line. So I think it's important to really underscore that the lack of access to these essentials has an outsized impact on communities of color, with nearly 25% of Black and Latina people with periods reporting difficulty affording period products at all. Since HB 711's passage in 2021, we have only received data for 2022, but we can already see the impact it has had on donations. In 22, over 8,000 taxpayers donated over 5 million in diapers and hygiene products. Unlike federal income taxes, which are often limited to the minority of taxpayers who itemize their taxes, this incentive empowers all Marylander taxpayers to participate in charitable giving. I'm confident that with increased awareness, more individuals and corporations will take advantage of this subtraction modification and continue to help make sure that every mother, child, and person in their community, as well as throughout our state, have the essential products they need to lead safe, healthy, and dignified lives. So for these reasons, I respectfully ask for an extension of 3 years on this sunset to HB 490. And I'd love to turn it over to my panel, please.
Thank you, Delegate Jones. I'm Jacqueline Lindsay. Good afternoon. I am the Executive Director of the Greater DC Diaper Bank. We are located in Montgomery County, Maryland, and we are here in support of House Bill 490. Diapers are basic and are critical to the health of children who wear them and to the financial and emotional health of families that care for these children. The Greater DC Diaper Bank distributes 11 million diapers each year, approximately 38,000 families and 40,000 babies across Maryland, Washington, DC, and Virginia. Last year, we distributed 4.9 million diapers, 45% of our total distribution in Maryland, as well as 429,000 in value of other essential hygiene products like baby wipes, period products, and formula. We serve 17 partners in Prince George's County and 20 partners in Montgomery County for a total of 37 partners in Maryland. And through our partnerships, our diapers reached Marylanders in 105 unique zip codes in 2023. Through this is expansive. It is not entirely enough to end diaper need for the 29,000 children under the age of 4 living in households at 200% of below the poverty level in Maryland, in our Maryland service area, namely Montgomery and Prince George's County. Even at this output level, an average, we serve about 20% of those children each month. Providing diapers for your baby is not a choice, though we see many families who are faced every month with the question of buying diapers for essential basic needs. At our organization, we're grappling with how to replace the emergency-based revenue that has dried up post-pandemic. Encouraging Marylanders to support our organization helps build our base of support so that we continue operating at current levels and provide new support each year. Nearly $300,000 of our annual operating budget, about 8%, comes from monthly supporters who commit donations starting at $15 a month, and approximately 30% of our overall budget is supported by donations from individuals. Showing support for organizations like ours and others in Maryland doing similar work through tax subtractions that encourage Marylanders to donate makes a statement about what we value as a community. This bill shows that we as a state value the health of babies, caregivers, and families, and understand the critical work of nonprofits addressing these issues. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the committee. My name is Kia Holder. I am the Deputy Program Integrationist at the Community Action Agency of Anne Arundel County, and I'm here today in support of the bill. Our organization is the designated anti-poverty organization, and in that title carries the responsibility for us to look after the low-income individuals and families in this county. We have a diaper distribution program that we started in October. We serve 35 families, and since October, we have given out over 2,000 diapers. I'm sorry, 21,000 diapers. That is a savings of over $85 per family. Some of our families have multiple children in the family. So that cost savings allows them to be able to distribute those funds for the basic needs in the household. Along with the services that we provide with the diapers, we do wraparound services that allows us to provide an assessment with the families to determine other needs. Feminine hygiene products is one of the top needs for our families that have girls and women in their household. It's another expense they just cannot afford to do. So the support for this comes from data that we have, and we are building up a database to be able to determine the real need of the outcomes that come from these families receiving diapers. We're capturing outcomes that determine how families are saving money, but also, as Delegate Jones says, on the health factors that they're able to reduce those ER visits as well as doctor visits. We provide also products that are wipes as well as diaper cream. And so what we're doing is trying to determine the cost savings for that. But we would find that we have a waiting list. There are over 12 families on a waiting list. But our intake office is capturing calls daily for families inquiring about the diaper program and expanding the need that we have. So we stand in full support of this bill. We hope that it'll be favorable on your end. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, Chairwoman. Just quickly, because I know your days are very long, a lot of folks have submitted, and I've encouraged folks to submit written testimony, as I know that your days are long, but the worst feeling consistently is to turn mothers and families away when the time comes in line where we do run out. And so trying to get both my district as well as others in the state for those who have to give to those that don't have much is consistently what this bill has done. And I'm hopeful it'll pass again. So thank you so very much.
Any questions for Delegate Jones or the panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
And that concludes the testimony on House Bill 490. And bringing us home for the day, Delegate Adams, please come up. Let's hear House Bill 557 and whoever you have with you on your panel. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, Delegate Chris Adams presenting House Bill 557, which is a repeal of the reporting requirement and sunset for aircraft parts and equipment. In 2020, myself and Senator Eckhart brought this bill forward out of the lens of competing with neighboring states where most of the states have this tax exemption available. And what we were saying to the legislature at the time, and we got agreement, is that we wanted to show competition, but also do it in a sunset variety so we can come back and revisit this. We're asking this year for you to revisit and grant us a permanent to the tax exemption. There are 33 small regional airports in the state. In my district, I represent 3, and for each of these airports, they have a dynamic business model that requires all forms of revenue generation. This bill speaks to the most important part, frankly, which is the maintenance and repair of these smaller airplanes. And it also finally, Madam Chair, speaks to the connection between these airports and workforce development. You'll find through some of the testimony today that we have colleges and universities that partner with airlines in these airports to do great work to grow and expand our economy. This bill goes a long way towards making that much more confident for market participants to be in Maryland and to grow in Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity to bring the bill, and we ask for your favorable report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee. My name is Jamie Giandomenico. Appear before you on behalf of the Maryland Aviation Council, its board and membership. I'm also the airport manager at Ocean City Municipal Airport, also a pilot, and also hold several FAA mechanic certificates. Wanted to kind of reiterate 3 really important points that we feel is key in our request for a favorable report on 557 here. The initial is geographical. Delegate Adams mentioned real briefly, we exist kind of in a sea of the eastern seaboard from southern states all the way up to mid-Atlantic in New York. Aircraft parts, appliances, and avionics tax exemption. We want to stay competitive with those states. The second part folds right into that. The aircraft that we're talking about by their nature are pretty mobile. They're made to do nothing if not travel. And it's very easy for owners or businesses to take advantage of tax differentials in different regions. We want to make sure that we keep that business home. At my airport at Ocean City, It's about a 12 to 15-minute flight to Georgetown, Delaware for maintenance. We want to keep that. We want to keep that business here home. And the last part, Delegate Adams also mentioned, again, back to the shore. I know Wycomico County, UMES, and Piedmont Airlines is working on course and training for aviation maintenance technicians. We want to have a competitive market for them to stay in once they graduate and take up high-paying jobs in Maryland. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's great to be here and I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Dave Ryan with Salisbury Wycomico County Economic Development Corporation. And one of the single largest economic engines on the lower eastern shore of Maryland is the Salisbury Ocean City Regional Airport. It's $150 million a year impact to our economy. The primary reason it's such an impact is the presence of scheduled airline service provided by Piedmont Airlines, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines. One of the primary reasons we've retained scheduled airline service, and we fly to Philadelphia and Charlotte, is due to the presence of the maintenance base associated with Piedmont Airlines. There's 8 maintenance bases. Ours is right in the middle of their service territory, and you have to service those planes. You might as well put people on them, and that's why we've retained scheduled airline service while many small communities in America have lost that service. The challenge for maintenance mechanics is well noted. And we're doing something about it. We're investing $3.3 million in establishing a Part 147 FAA certified aviation maintenance technician school with our partners, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And that will fill the existing pipeline of talent needed for the airlines and create those new jobs for the maintenance of corporate and the general aviation side of the airfield. So our first cohort will begin in the fall of this year and should graduate at 12 months from the fall of this year, just about time this thing sunsets. So we want to give them a chance, to give us a chance to create that maintenance opportunity on the lower shore. Thank you for the opportunity.
Madam Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And thank you to Delegate Adams for sponsoring this bill for us. My name is Sean Collins, and I'm the Eastern Regional Manager for the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. We're the world's largest aviation membership, organization in the world. We represent over 300,000 aircraft owners and pilots across the country, including 4,500 here in the state of Maryland. And on behalf of these members, of course, we support House Bill 557. In 2020, the legislature passed the targeted sales tax exemption on aircraft parts and components with a provision to sunset in 2025. This action was urgently needed for Maryland's aviation industry to remove a competitive barrier with neighboring states. Some of you will recall the map that we supplied to you. Since that time, Virginia has extended their exemption. West Virginia has cemented its own in line with Pennsylvania, which has no sunset, and that's been in place since 2013. Unfortunately, the inclusion of the sunset provision hinders potential new and long-term investment where business planning strategies traditionally look at 10 and 20-year horizons. And my colleague touched on this, but the key to understanding this bill is understanding that general aviation is a mobile industry. While convenience is a chief concern, expense is always the principal motivator in choosing where to have your aircraft serviced, even if it means skipping over or leaving Maryland entirely to have these services performed. For this reason, the competition to entice new business at airports across the state is fierce. The opportunity for a state to increase its competitive edge over its neighbor states is limited, making the necessity to keep pace vital. Passage of the Maryland's exemption has paved the way for industry growth and investment, both existing and new maintenance facilities. Of the 9 facilities that have responded to the AOPA survey, collective employment at these companies increased from 21 staff in 2019 to 61 staff currently. At the St. Mary's County Regional Airport, the number of maintenance facilities increased from 2 to 3, while quadrupling the number of staff associated with services from 4 to 16. And there's a number of examples like this across the state. So with that, thank you for your time and be happy to answer questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Gustavus McLeod. I'm the Executive Director of the Glen L. Martin Maryland Aviation Museum. It's an honor here to talk to you. But what I'm going to talk to you about is the history of Maryland and aviation. We're the premier aviation state in the nation. There's more history in aviation here in Maryland than any place else in the world. Everybody else brags about it, but we do it. I tell people the Wrights may have invented the airplane, but Maryland showed everybody how to build it. Maryland set more records than everybody else. I've set one of those records. I'm the first guy to fly to the North Pole in an open cockpit airplane and come back. Now, the rest of the world and the country wants our aviation chops. We've had them. We take for granted how good we are. We spend less on aviation than any other state in the union. And we still are the best. Well, if we're not going to spend the money, let's at least not do any harm. And if we don't keep that sunset, we do harm. Everybody else want what we have. And if we don't actively try to keep what we have, we'll lose it. So my speech is quick, and I know you're probably tired because I'm certainly tired having said all this. So I'm finished, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. There are two other people here to testify. If you want to come up, Mr. Favaza, and we'll do questions after. I do see a light on. And Richard Babin, come on up for 2 minutes, please. Mr. McLeod, you guys don't leave just yet in case somebody has a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, members of the committee, I'm John Favaza with Manus Canning and Associates. I'm here today on behalf of the Washington County Community Coalition in support of the bill. Washington County is home to Hagerstown Regional Airport. We came to this committee in 2020 asking for the ability of our aircraft repair industry to be on an equal footing with our surrounding states, most of whom, if you've heard, have had these long established sales tax exemptions. We're here today to say thanks and to ask that you help the industry continue its good work and make this exemption permanent. Our regional airport is home not only to several aircraft repair companies, but also to the Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics, where FAA certified technicians are being trained. And this legislation that this committee passed in 2020 is now given the opportunity for those technicians being trained here in Maryland to have a greater opportunity to be employed here in Maryland. And, you know, we have data from the school to indicate that placements from the school to airports in this region is moving in the right direction. As Mr. Collins indicated, there's evidence that your action has been exactly the boost that the industry has needed. We're grateful for the committee's decision. We're on an equal footing now. We're able to compete, and we look forward to continuing to grow jobs and grow our economic activity here in the state. And with that, I'll thank Delegate Adams for sponsoring the bill and ask the committee for a favorable report.
Hi, and good afternoon. My name is Rich Babin, and I am a line mechanic at G-Force Avionics and Maintenance. It's a small 6-man operation that is split between Tipton Airport at Fort Meade as well as Manassas in Virginia. And I just would like to point out that sunsetting this bill would be a death of 1,000 cuts. It's so very, very easy due to the topography and geographic location of Maryland, as was pointed out before. Pilots and their aircraft are highly mobile. And if I may dispel a small myth, it's not a playground for the rich. The vast majority of customers, fellow pilots, and other individuals in aviation that I personally deal with are middle-aged individuals who have, they've demonstrated high levels of financial discipline and spent years building up to actually own an aircraft, which incidentally, the average age of the general aviation fleet is about 50 and rising, simply because that's all we can afford. So we're a very, very disciplined bunch when it comes to finances, and it compels a lot of our decisions. As was pointed out, maintenance is the #1 cost most of us pay. And we are literally in the middle of a group of other states that we can very easily reach that have many facilities, all of which have this exemption in place. And as I said, the G-Force operation in Maryland would almost certainly simply just move down to Manassas and take our customers with us. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, Delegate Fair?
Very quickly, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for bringing the bill forward. I have Frederick Municipal Airport in my district, so it's always a very critical issue with my constituents. I did want to touch on in the fiscal note, there was a letter that the comptroller's office has provided about the revenue lost from this program and outlines specifically that in the years since this legislation passed, they have never been able to actually quantify what this tax exemption has cost or cost to the budget by creating this exemption. Do you all have any data on how much this exemption has been used?
Yeah, I can jump in and take that. So it was actually an issue before the exemption passed because the comptroller's office was not able to quantify how much the tax was created. So my organization surveyed as many as the companies as we could. We got responses from about 55%, and we extrapolated and rounded up and determined that it was less than $250,000 a year that the tax was actually generating for the state.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that answer. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Delegate Adams. Thank you everyone for coming in.
Thank you.
And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 557. Committee, we are going to take a 10-minute break and then we are going to have a voting session. It's 4:06. I will see you at 4:16.